across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Here we go. Very good evening. Welcome to the James Whale Show, unleashed on a Friday night from 10.
Yeah.
Although, due to the fact I'm still recovering from flu, I will probably only be here for an hour or so, and Ash will be in charge for the rest of the programme. But I do really look forward to this, and hopefully in the next few weeks I shall be doing more. But on top of the cancer, it kind of makes it a bit difficult. Anyway, I couldn't miss tonight to begin with, could I?
Amazing.
Look at what has gone on. Must be the most interesting, entertaining, and probably to some people very worrying exchange between Zelensky and Trump. I really want to know what you think. I want to know whether you think that Trump has damaged the planet, damaged the world, and made us more vulnerable to a world war, or whether or not there is a chance that what Trump is doing is actually going to help things quite a lot, because
he's making it safer, I think, because Zelensky wants to carry on the war like Keir Starmer. I mean, these are meant to be lefties, you know, the EU. They're just warmongers. And Trump's fed up of seeing all the deaths, thousands and thousands of deaths. Ukraine have lost their professional army. Russia have lost their army.
Yeah.
And now they're not even putting tanks in anymore, because warfare's changed. Because of drones, you can destroy a $50 million tank with a $3,000 drone.
We need professional soldiers. We could fill Wembley Stadium with our standing army.
And still have about 20,000 seats left.
And yeah, so that's all we have.
Boxes.
We don't have enough ammunition to protect the country.
We've given it to Ukraine.
So before we do anything like worry, and these idiots, you see these political nutcases going on, and the minister who quit today, good riddance to her as far as I'm concerned.
And Starmer going on about in the Oval Office with Vance saying, oh, don't worry, I'm very proud of our free speech tradition, as he arrests grandmothers and puts them away for letting his own MPs beat the crap out of people and get a suspended sentence.
I think we have the worst government. Let's see how much freedom of speech we have. See if I end up in prison. I think we have the worst bloody government we have had in my lifetime, and I'm quite old.
And that's saying something, yeah.
Yeah, I think we have the worst...
Maybe ever.
Yeah. He is not a leader. He is a man who actually doesn't seem to know what a leader should do. So I'd like to hear from you. 0344 499 1000. If you are watching us on TV, the number is up on the screen at the moment. And welcome to our listeners and to our viewers. And just to remind those of you who've never seen the show or heard the show before, even though it's been going in one form or another for nearly 50 years, it can sometimes get a little heated. Sometimes people accuse me of bullying. I can't believe that. If you're one of those weak, wokey wallies, I nearly said the WA word, then I suggest...
Wazzics.
Yeah, I suggest you go somewhere else. Don't watch me.
Don't make a fuss about it. Just leave the room quietly, say good night, and up the wooden hill.
You don't have to watch, you don't have to listen, and if you're easily offended, I suggest that you don't do either of those things.
Go and have a Horlicks.
Do you like my cravat?
Which is gruel. Did you know Horlicks is gruel?
I didn't.
No, you don't know that. So it's quite nice, gruel. Yeah.
Right, shall we talk to our first guest? I believe she's ready.
Yes, let's.
Yep. Susan Platt, President Biden's former chief of staff. Susan Platt, very good evening to you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
This has got nothing. I'm just interested because I'm a bit naive. What does what does the chief of staff actually do for the president?
Well, the chief of staff is the well. I was his chief of staff when he was in the Senate, so that's a little bit different than as president. But you coordinate the staff, you coordinate his meetings, you coordinate his schedule, you help him make big decisions, and you make sure he's ready for whatever may come down the pike.
Are you a civil servant sort of thing, like the permanent secretary?
I was in the Senate, on the government dole, yes, the Senate dole.
And did you need to wake him up quite often?
Absolutely not. The man's brain functions very well, very clearly. He can focus like a laser and come to the correct political point, in my opinion.
So basically, you're the person at that time with all the power. Okay, now I know. In fact,
No, she was when he was in the Congress.
tell me, yeah, I know. Tell me what you thought about the sort of interaction between Trump and Zelensky today. Were you surprised? Were you upset? What did you think?
So are you referring to the brawl in the
Yeah.
Oval Office? Yeah. I was, as I was watching it, I was horrified. I was mortified. I was embarrassed. And I'm a proud American. Always have been, always will be, I thought. But today I was embarrassed for our country.
Why?
Donald Trump once before has set up President Zelensky to be blackmailed. So this is not the first time. And what this was...
Hang on, Susan. What do you mean by set up to blackmail? I've watched it loads of times. I don't understand. It all kind of came out of a disagreement. I don't think he set him up at all. In fact, if anything, maybe Zelensky shouldn't have reacted in the way he did.
I don't think you were watching the same brawl I was watching.
I think I was, and it just goes to show how people can have different opinions.
If you watch J.D. Vance attack, I don't know if it was a setup or not. That's my guess.
Exactly.
But you know what? Some of these people are new on the world. J.D. Vance was only a senator for 2 years. He's new on the world
So
stage.
Zelensky and Trump. I mean, Trump's not that a politician.
Zelensky has been fighting a war to save his country. And what happened
He
today...
can't win it without America and Europe, though, can he?
What happened today was shameful and a not productive display of Trump's worst instincts. It was a unprecedented spectacle. It's a dark day for Americans. Americans have never berated our allies, particularly on public display. We have now today sold out some of our allies.
All right. Susan.
No, hold on.
No, you
Sold
hold on.
it out to the Kremlin.
Susan, I just want to play a clip from this for people who may not have seen it, who may have been at work today. Even Ash came in and said, "Well, I haven't really seen what's going on.
I didn't say
So let's just play this clip and see what you think, guys.
From the very beginning of the war, we've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
You haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet,
You
and
haven't
not
been
only
alone.
in this cabinet.
We gave you, through
I
this
said thank
stupid
you.
president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military equipment,
You
and you
voted
men
for
are
your
brave,
president.
but they had to use our military.
Yes. What about West
if
Africa?
you didn't have
You
our
invited
military
me-
equipment,
you invited
if
me
you
to
didn't
speak.
have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3
okay?
days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days.
He's absolutely right, Susan. He's absolutely right, isn't he?
No, he's not right. He's not right. Putin was the aggressor here. Let's remember that.
Putin brought the world into a really not Putin, but obviously Putin, but Biden
Yes.
brought the world into a very dangerous place because he did nothing, absolutely nothing, and gave Putin the idea that he could march into another country and take it over. Now, Putin is having to think.
Putin has been wanting to rebuild the Russian Empire
Of
for any
course.
number of years. And if you take a look at it, he's going to keep going at it. He's going to keep...
And so
And thankfully, the
Trump
Brits have joined
is
in a
going to
lot,
stop it.
too.
Trump is going to stop it, though.
It's a meat grinder, thousands of people a day. They've lost their professional army, Ukraine. So, Russia, you want to keep the meat grinder going, 1,000 people a day dying.
You know, President Zelensky has to represent his country and his people and their democracy. And America used to always stand up for democracies and our allies in Europe.
They're representing their people.
Today,
Trump's representing the American people.
Hang on. Let me ask a proper question. Do you think, then, to win this war, obviously, Russia has to be defeated and Putin has to be removed? Is that what you want to see the world do? And do you think the world can do it?
Putin has to be defeated. I think
Even if it kills millions more people?
Have you forgotten they're a
Just a
nuclear
minute.
power,
Just a
Russia?
minute.
Look, we have to take our lead from the duly elected president of Ukraine, who supports his people and his people support him. And as long as he wants to hold his ground and try to take back any land that was aggressively taken by Putin, we ought to stand with him. And so should Poland, so should the UK, so should all the neighboring NATO countries.
Why
Putin's
should we,
not-
hang on. Why should we risk the people of the United Kingdom in a war? And it's okay for you because you've got a bloody great sea between you and Europe. I think, as Trump said today, it's we that will be first to be invaded. And if America say, no, I'm sorry, but, you know, you've had money off us for defence, you've had money off us for this, and we're not going to get involved. I don't think they'll do that, by the way. But, you know, until there is some kind of coming together of Russia and the rest of the West, there isn't going to be peace. And we're not going to just defeat Russia. It won't happen.
They're the biggest nuclear power in the world, they're bigger than America.
I don't know why we won't, but I want to just point you to one thing today. Secretary of State Marco Rubio forever has called Putin a thug, a mafia boss, a killer, a gangster, and needs to be stopped any way possible. Did you watch how he was seated in the White House today?
How are you going to stop Putin? He's got a bigger nuclear arsenal than the USA. How are you going to beat a nuclear power with a bigger
And I wouldn't
arsenal?
be surprised if Marco Rubio resigns.
I don't really like the idea of Russia hurtling nuclear bombs over here or over to you, and you hurtling nuclear bombs over to Russia. That isn't going to do us over here any good at all. And that's what you're talking about.
I'm sorry, but the only person that brought up the Third World War today was Donald Trump.
Loads of people have brought up the Third World War over the last couple of weeks, and it hasn't actually helped. Having an idiot like Joe Biden, I'm sorry, but he's the most useless president you ever had. I don't think he's helped world peace whatsoever. I think he's put us in a very dangerous place. Have a look at this. No, have a quick look at this. Have a look at this.
I've empowered you to be a tough guy. And I don't think you'd be a tough guy without the United States. And your people are very brave. But you're either going to make a deal or we're out. And if we're out, you'll fight it out. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but you'll fight it out. But you don't have the cards. But once we sign that deal, you're in a much better position.
OK, last word to you, Susan Platt, former Chief of Staff to President Biden. And then we're going to be talking to Sebastian Gorka, who is President Trump's counter-terrorism chief. Do you really... I beg your pardon? Sorry, Susan?
I said that's terribly exciting. They're firing people, intelligence and psyops and all that. They're firing them left and right. We're left unsecured.
You're a very, very silly lady, if you don't mind me saying. Because quite frankly, you're talking rubbish. And that's what annoys me, because the only way to go forward is to get these two countries to come to some kind of agreement. You and me, because I'm too bloody old, are not going to be on the front line putting our lives at risk. But our children and our grandchildren, yes, you will, are going to be there. And I think you need to really think about the things you're saying, and you're going on the media.
Let me tell you, I have thought. I'm a proud American, but today I was ashamed because all of a sudden America has been turned on its axis, and we're aligning ourselves with the thug Putin.
How do you beat Putin?
Okay,
Just tell us how you beat Putin in a war.
She doesn't know, so she obviously.
Okay, well,
you've written a book. Tell me what your book is called.
Love, politics, and other scary things, just like talking to you guys.
Well, I don't think it's as scary as talking to some of the people in America, but I think you're quite right. Susan, thank you very much indeed. Susan Platt is President Biden's former Chief of Staff, and she's written that book, which is out, I believe, at the moment. Can we move to Seb and have a chat to Seb? First of all, congratulations, Seb. I haven't spoken to you since you got your new job.
Your Majesty, yes.
Yes, well, maybe we should.
Thank you, my friend. It's been far too long.
Tell me what you thought about the verbal intercourse, between Zelensky and Trump today. I mean, I've never in my entire life, 50 years on the air somewhere, seen anything like that.
Yeah, it was. I welcomed the news that he was coming to the White House, but I'm a little bit bemused, especially by your last guest. Whoever you are, whoever you voted for, whatever country you come from, and especially if you're from Europe as well, you should side with President Trump's desire. And President Trump's desire is unitary and very, very simple: for the bloodshed to stop. My boss, the National Security Advisor, who knows a thing or two about bloodshed, the first ever Green Beret, the first ever Special Forces veteran to serve as the National Security Advisor to the President. I think you quoted him a few moments ago. He said recently at one of these bilaterals, I think in Saudi Arabia, it's a meat grinder. How many hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians and Russians need to die to make people like your last guest happy, whether it's in Gaza, whether it's on the doorstep of Europe in the Ukraine? President Trump wants the bloodshed to end, for the meat grinder to stop. And that was an opportunity today for the president from Kiev to be engaged in an end to the hostilities. But sadly, it seems not to be the case that he's, on the side of peace.
Seb, why do you think so many people... In fact, I was having an argument with my wife before I came to the studios about it, because she said, "Oh, I think Trump is just being very nasty to this poor man." But a lot of ladies seem to feel like that. What is going on?
I'm sorry, I'm a guy. I've been a guy for the last 54 years, so I can't, channel that.
Can't remember before that.
I'm not a Yeah, no, I can't do the transition either. I don't believe in that. It's weird. I mean, it beggars belief. There's one man. Name me another head of state. Just name me any head of state of any nation on any continent who could broker this deal. This is the man who literally wrote the book, The Art of the Deal. If there's anyone, let's just look at the facts. Again, take your personal proclivities, take politics out of the equation. When we were in the White House the first time, for 4 years, there were no wars. No new wars. Russia didn't invade anyone. On top of that empirical fact, we had what? The Abraham Accords. Yeah. We were told it's impossible. You can't bring peace to the Middle East. You can't get incredibly divergent nations, Arab nations, Muslim nations, to sit down with Israel. We did it, thanks to the president, thanks to his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. And it's as if people don't want peace. It's as if people don't want to, staunch the blood and stop the bloodshed.
Why don't they want peace? Why don't they want the peace, Seb? Why does Zelensky want to carry it on when there's thousands a day sometimes dying, more than America and Britain lost in the whole Afghan campaign in one day? Why don't they want to stop it?
I can't speak for him. I don't know what's driving the current stance. If you look at the people here in America, the election, who didn't vote with the other 77 million to put President Trump back in the White House, I don't know, are they victims of fake news? Are they just bloodthirsty? I truly don't know, because, again, why would you not want the war to end? Yeah. And if you want it to continue, at what cost? At whose children? Whose children are you going to deploy into that theater to continue the war? Are you going to send your children? Is that woman you had on, is she going to send her family to fight the war? I don't think so. So what are we talking about?
And why is it always the left now are the warmongers? Yeah. They're meant to be peaceniks, the left, but they've become all like warmongers.
Isn't it strange what's happened in the last... in the 60s, the 70s, the left were against the man. Do you remember? Stick it to the man. Yep. We don't like the feds. We don't like the government. Now, they love big government. Along comes Elon Musk, who wants to save you money, wants government to be transparent and accountable, and he's the bad guy? I mean, everything's turned on its head.
Why has the media become so left-wing? We're concerned in this country about losing freedom of speech.
We've lost it in this country.
Well, to a certain extent we have. We never had the freedom of speech to do programmes like this because Seb grew up here in Britain. He's British,
Yeah, but
hang on. But when you went to America, you could do the programs that I do, but you could do it in a way that I would love to have been able to do it in my life, because we don't have the same freedoms as you, do we?
Well, look, there's a reason it's the very first amendment to the U.S. Constitution. I mean, we have the Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms, which makes all the other civil rights possible. But the founding fathers made it the very first addition to the Constitution, freedom of speech. We don't have awful things like Ofcom either. We have private behind-the-scenes attempts, at Twitter prior to Musk, at Facebook, to try and censor free speech. But along comes a president who says, no, you have a right to freedom of speech. We're not going to let government get involved in censorship. So I don't know. Maybe the First Amendment is our great guarantor of our freedoms.
Question. I know you've got to go. Do you think that Trump can actually help bring peace to the world?
He's the only one who can. He did it before. Think about it. Crimea was invaded under Obama. Nothing for 4 years. Biden comes in, Afghanistan is surrendered, October the 7th, the greatest loss of Jewish life since the end of the Holocaust. And then we have, of course, the second invasion, the third invasion of Ukraine. So if it can be done, the only person can do it is President Trump.
Thank you, Seb. Hopefully talk to you soon, and congratulations again on the job that you have. We'll be back after this.
Mazel tov.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
0344 499 1000. We will be taking a load of calls in a moment. We will also go and talk to Lance Foreman, who has been protesting outside the BBC. They've apologised for the serious flaws in that appalling programme promoting Hamas. And what the BBC are doing, I have no idea.
The counter-terrorist squad are investigating them at the moment.
Yeah, interesting to see what Ofcom are going to say about it, particularly as Ofcom were put in their place earlier on today. Before that, let's take a call. Phil in Worthing, you're on the air. Phil, what can we do for you?
Oh, good evening, James. Good to see you on TV. Good evening, Ash, as well.
Phil, to the point, Phil, to the point, sir.
All right, Phil, how you doing?
Well, the point is this, boys. I'm worried that Starmer's playing a very tricky game, because if America turns its back on supporting us and we end up in Ukraine, what happens if one of our jets accidentally goes into Russian territory? We're relying on our nuclear submarines, and to be honest, I don't think they're capable of defending against the 1,500 active missiles that the Russians have got.
Yeah, no, we're not. We're in a position where if a world war was to break out and we were on a side opposed, and let's remember that Russia could quite easily join up with China, and they could join up with Iran and other
even
Middle Eastern countries. I don't think India. I hope not India, but
Axis now.
I worry a great deal about the stupidity of some people. The minister, Annalise Dodds, who quit today, good riddance to her as well. Yeah. I think she wasn't really exciting anyway.
She's not capable. She's not capable.
None of them are capable.
But we should cancel all. Never mind just a few bits of foreign aid until we are able to support ourselves. We cannot support anyone else.
True.
We're supporting Hamas. We're supporting terrorists all the time.
And also to Ash's point earlier about freedom of speech, people don't talk about Peter Lynch. He's a political prisoner. He died in prison, bloke same age as me, mid-60s, had a little bit of a shout at a riot. It was wrong to do so, but to die in prison, surely
we put in prison 10 times more people than Russia do, and they're about 4 times our size in population.
I mean, the problem is that I think... we have a Prime Minister who is useless. We have a Prime Minister who doesn't know how to lead. And the disgusting behaviour of these extremists setting fire and everything else was appalling, and they deserve everything they got, by the way. But, people who make comments on social media, you've got to take a lot of comments with a pinch of salt. And if a comment on social media works you up to behave appallingly, then you need locking up too.
It doesn't. It's been proven that people aren't incited by a tweet. It just doesn't happen.
It's X.
Thing is, James, I wrote a letter in 1973 when I was 13 years old to my local newspaper in Redditch, Worcestershire, and I said that the thing that was keeping us safe was, and it's a horrible thing to admit, but the thing that was keeping us safe was the nuclear defences we've got.
Yeah.
And I still think that's the only reason that Russia doesn't have a go at us.
I agree with you.
And America as well.
I agree with you. Totally agree with you. Thank you, Phil. Right, back to loads more calls. We've got loads of calls coming on, and texts and thingy-bobs on there.
You can leave a WhatsApp message.
Yeah, you can leave a message.
Voice message.
Which we may play later by just calling us on the normal number.
On WhatsApp.
On WhatsApp, yeah. Right, the BBC, changing subject slightly, but of course we go back to Trump and Zelensky and get your views on that in a moment. The BBC has apologised for serious flaws in the making of the programme Gaza, How to Survive a War Zone, which was incredibly one-sided. I actually don't believe anybody looked at it at the BBC. If people looked at it who were supposed to look at it before it went out, I am sure they wouldn't have made.
Well, it was a terrorist son. They must have known it was a terrorist son because you have to get parents' permission. And they when they said Jews, they put in the subtitles Israelis, so they were being PR for these Hamas terrorists.
Well, it's being probed at the moment and investigated. Let's talk to Lance Foreman, who is a prominent member of the
former
Jewish
MEP
community, former MEP.
Makes
and
great
been
smoked
protesting.
Salmon.
While I'm talking, could you shut the flip up?
I was just introducing because you were floundering.
And no, I'm not. I'm just getting annoyed with you because you smell of that smoke. It's really quite worrying.
1989.
Lance, good evening. Welcome to the programme.
Good evening to you, James. Evening to you.
Right.
I also smell of smoke, but it's smoked salmon most of the time.
Yeah, well, I had some of your very nice smoked salmon earlier, I have to say. Thank you. And also thank you for the little gift you sent me at Christmas, but that's not why you're on.
It is really.
How on earth are the Jewish community here in the UK now managing? Because I hear that there is a lot of nastiness and a lot of racism towards the Jewish community that we don't hear about in the media still going on. Is that right?
Well, that there's certainly a strong feeling amongst the Jewish community here that they just don't actually know whether there's a future in this country, not necessarily for us, but for our children and grandchildren. But you know what's interesting, James, because I say that to non-Jewish friends of mine, and they sort of say, well, where what would you do? Where are you going to go? And we say, well, maybe America, probably Israel. And I'll tell you what, the number of times I've heard people, friends of mine, non-Jewish friends of mine, say to me, "Can we come with?" They're equally worried. What is going on with anti-Semitism isn't just an attack on Jewish people; it's an attack on Western liberal democracy, and the Jews are just at the forefront of it all. We've heard the phrase many times, "the canary in the coal mine."
Yeah.
But it's absolutely true.
But we see it in the hate marches on a Saturday. It's not just against Israel; it's against this country. They hate Britain as well.
They
join
do.
the dots.
This film that was put out by the BBC is really the icing on the cake. The BBC have been playing this game for 20 to 30 years, and there's a very strong feeling within the Jewish community now that enough is enough.
Let's have a little look at your demonstration while we're talking. Let's have a look at the demonstration outside the BBC, because it was quite a large demonstration, wasn't it?
Yeah, there were a couple of thousand people there, I think.
You know,
so this is a couple of hours ago, was it?
This was
a couple of days. I wish you'd do your research.
I wonder why there was no one there when I went.
Honestly. I'm sorry about that, Lance. He doesn't bother. He turns up looking like he's been on the streets all night. What do you think the BBC will actually do now? Because they've admitted the mistake.
First of all, James, I don't believe it was a mistake. I think they knew what they were doing all along. I think they have done. You know, every now and again they apologise and then they go back and do the same thing over and over again. They've never had to apologise to the Muslim community or the Palestinian community because they never get it wrong that way round. They're constantly getting things wrong this way round. They say there's going to be an inquiry, but there have been lots of inquiries. There have been 2 inquiries in the last year, both of which prove that there is anti-Israel bias at the BBC. The BBC did their own inquiry 20 years ago by a BBC journalist. It was an internal one by a guy called Malcolm Bailen. The BBC have never made this thing public, and yet they talk about wanting transparency. And meanwhile, the BBC have been involved in more cover-ups than I've had hot dinners. You know, whether it's Jimmy Savile, Martin Bashir, Hugh Edwards recently.
What would you say, Lance, to the Director General who may well be listening now?
Well, what I would say is, first of all, there is an institutional problem in this organisation and something has to change. And quite frankly, I think there needs to be, and I heard on the news earlier today that there might actually be investigations by the counter-terrorism.
It's already begun, that has,
yeah.
And I think that needs to happen because
it's happening.
The BBC have funded Hamas. They've justified Hamas's actions. They refuse to call Hamas terrorists, and then the Jewish community has had meetings with senior representatives of the BBC, and we say to them, how can you not call Hamas, who are a proscribed terrorist organisation, how can you not call them terrorists? And what they say is, well, we don't call anyone terrorists. That's an absolute blatant lie. Because the BBC called the 9/11 bombers terrorists, the 7/7 bombers terrorists, the London Bridge attack terrorists. The BBC management lie through their teeth on this.
Do you think the Director General should go?
Look, it's not just the Director General. There's an institutional problem within the entire organisation.
I mean, the Chief Content Officer has left this week. The Director General is the overall boss, and if it was a private company, he'd have gone long ago. Well, the BBC's past its sell-by date, isn't it? Do you still pay your license?
The license fee's got to go. It's
Do you pay it though, Lance? Do you pay your license?
Well, you know what? At the protest earlier this week, one of the speakers said, in fact, he was a presenter on another news channel, said, from now on, I'm not paying my license fee. Who's with me? And I reckon 1,000 people put up their hands saying, it's enough now.
Because you'd be funding Hamas, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, you would be funding Hamas, and quite frankly, they can't put 1,000 people in prison because there aren't the prison places.
Has it been infiltrated, the BBC, by certain people? Is there groups there? And now it's got such a mass. You can't work there if you're Jewish and open your mouth about anything, can't you?
Well, that's right. No. And in fact, there was a protest, a counter protest against anti-Semitism a year ago, and the BBC refused to allow people to go on this counter-protest. It was ridiculous. But why the question is, why do the BBC do this? Why are they supporting?
Because they're full of a bunch of woke lefty liberals who actually think that they are the intelligentsia of the nation. They think that their views are right. That's why you couldn't get one of them at the BBC to say anything positive about Donald Trump. You couldn't get one of them to say at the BBC anything positive about Israel at the moment. They're a bunch of left-wing losers.
The cameraman was supporting Hamas of that documentary on October the 7th. He supported and was celebrating the action.
I think that's part. I think certainly the woke thing is part of it. But in the case of Israel-Palestine, there could be other things at play here. There could be bribery at play. There could be threats.
Who knows? Who knows?
If the BBC journalists go and say something against Hamas,
I've got to go.
They could be attacked, murdered.
We will get you back another time, Lance. Thank you. Honestly, I wish people would just wrap up when they could help. I was
Couldn't
coming
take
to
the
a
hint,
wrap
could
up.
he?
No.
Couldn't take the hint.
And nor can you.
No, I can't. No,
Shall
I
we
never
take
know
a
when
short
to
break?
stop, do
I think we will.
I never know when to.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good evening. It is James Well Unleashed until 11 tonight.
Starring Ash.
Possibly. And thank you for your calls. Keep your calls coming in. Let's go straight to Pat in London. Hello, Pat.
Oh, hello. Good evening. Look, even if these talks don't materialise, even if it don't really come to anything, at least Donald Trump is trying to stop the bloodshed. He's trying to get a peaceful resolution to this problem, and I salute him for that. I mean,
well, Keir Starmer.
I hope he does.
Keir Starmer has just come out, Pat, and said he would like to give his unwavering support to Zelensky after their altercation at the White House tonight, which I find slightly worrying.
Didn't mention that in the Oval Office, did he?
No, because I think that what Donald Trump is trying to do, and maybe I'm wrong, listen, phone me, we've got loads of calls, we'll try and take as many as we can, but I think he's trying to bring peace to the world. I don't think he's trying to start another war, as so many people do.
No, I mean, what you say is trying to bring peace to where peace is. There is no peace.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is that he's trying. It's not like other world leaders. They just sit on their hands. Oh, we'll give more millions and millions and millions. I'll tell you what. If they had any bottle, James, if they had any bottle, they'd go out there, they'd put troops, but they don't. They don't want to, and they shouldn't do.
Yeah.
But
Pat.
the point is, they were happy to fight to the last Ukrainian.
And they have done.
I don't know that they are, but Pat, thank you for that. Dee is in the West Midlands. Dee, you're on the air on Talk Radio and TV. But you won't be on very long.
Dee.
So, Dee, are you there or not?
I'm here.
Speak.
I'm here.
Speak.
Hi,
Yes,
Dee.
right, okay. That Susan Platt that was just on, whoever she is, her surname, a second letter should be
Yeah,
changed.
all right. No need to be rude if you've got an important point to make or
I'm
not.
not going to be rude.
Yeah, you are. You're trying to score easy points. Pratt's very rude. Calling another lady a Pratt.
No, her name was Susan Platt,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
All right, let's get to a point of something intelligent to say, shall we?
Right, okay, right. I want to just say, Trump is fantastic. He says the truth. He says it how it is. He's absolutely fantastic, and we need him in the UK now. Starmer should be prison. Starmer is a traitor. Trump just wants the world to be great and fantastic, and Starmer just wants everybody coming into this country to vote for him. It's all bullshit.
He's destroying the country.
Yeah, I think I agree with you now, Dee. Thank you for a very good call. Thank you for that. And I absolutely am. I haven't heard the piece yet, but Keir Starmer has made a comment tonight saying he is unreservedly on the side of Zelensky and the Ukraine.
And
we're all on the side of the Ukraine.
He wants to carry on the war. Zelensky said to Trump in the office, he goes, if he beats us, he'll come for you. And Trump said, well, you've got no substantiation for that. And, you know, it's not like he wants to take over the world. He was emotionally blackmailing Trump. Load of bullshit.
Also, we can't defend ourselves. So Starmer saying things like that is putting all our lives at risk, isn't he?
Idiot.
Really stupid. Let's talk to Georgina in London. Georgina.
Hello, thanks for having me on the programme, guys. Well, I just want to say that Starmer needs to get the GDP up to 3% before he even contemplates our boys going anywhere. On Trump, I'd like to say that transparency in negotiation is a wonderful thing. I've never seen anything quite like that I saw today. Yes. Trump's a businessman and he wants to negotiate a deal between Zelensky and Putin, obviously, but you can't do that by treating people badly. I mean, when Putin came over, he had to be palsy-walsy with him. Otherwise, he wasn't going to get a deal done. Now, Zelensky's come over here today, and he's, you know, the lad's probably got a bee in his bonnet thinking that Trump is on Putin's side, which is totally wrong. Trump here is an independent body. He's like a negotiator between two feuding parents who want custody over the child, you know. So he just wants to sort this job out to stop any more killing. You know, every person who gets killed on that battlefield is someone's son or daughter, and I'm with him on that.
I think... Sorry to interrupt, Georgina. I think that Trump was taken quite by surprise about Zelensky's attitude. And everybody's, all the people who keep having a go at me are saying, oh, no, you got it wrong.
No,
it was
you're
Trump.
Absolutely right. Sweetheart, you are absolutely spot on. Don't budge in it.
What was refreshing was it was all transparent. We could see they were actually having an argument in front of us. Normal politicians would do, oh, we won't do this, we'll do it behind the scenes. You wouldn't see it. And we saw what was going on.
Well, the press can't come back now and say, oh, well, they said this or they said that, because we saw exactly what was going on. What you've got to realise is Zelensky turned around and said, you know, that the Ukraine's done it all on their own. Hang on a minute. The United States has sent over 350 billion. Doesn't sound much when you say it.
He's very ungrateful, very ungrateful.
You know, and the EU sent billions in.
That's what he said. That's what he said.
You don't insult someone in the
100 billion's gone missing as well, by the way.
Georgina, you make a really good point. Thank you so much. Just rushing on, I want to squeeze another call in before we go to a break. Jeff is in Slough. Jeff.
Hello, James. I just think the BBC are a load of nappies. They're full of shit.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Oh, dear.
And worse.
That's the most intelligent conversation I've heard for some considerable time, Jeff. Thank you.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Right, let's take some calls after the news. I'm going to stay on for a bit after 11 o'clock, I've decided.
Yeah, man.
And take some calls after 11. Let's talk a little bit about this. Ex-Labour MP Mike Amesbury has been let out of jail. He's the guy who punched the chap in the face and then continued to punch him in the head while he was on the ground. A more thuggish thing to do, it will be hard to find. He was given 10 weeks, wasn't it?
10 weeks, yeah.
Or was it 10 days?
It was 10 weeks.
Oh, 10 weeks.
But the next day he appealed and it got suspended, of course.
Why would you let a thug out of prison? Let's talk to Peter Blexley, a former Metropolitan Police detective. Joins us now. Peter, good evening.
Good evening.
And very smart you look too.
I had a couple of drinks with him last night.
I don't need to know about your social life.
Lovely.
Sorry, Peter.
He had a lovely suit, lovely whistle.
What do you think should have happened here?
Well, it's getting on for 11 o'clock now, and it's Friday night. Up and down the country, landlords and landladies will soon be calling "Time, gentlemen, please," or similar words, and trying to usher everybody out of their pubs. My concern is that somebody, somewhere, in one of those pubs, might have had one over the 8th this evening and might be feeling a little bit trunky and irritated, perhaps with somebody that said something they didn't like in the pub. And now, as they step outside the pub this evening, they might well think, as a result of this case, well, do you know what? I can punch them to the ground, I can repeatedly punch them again whilst they are on the ground, incapacitated and helpless, and do you know what? I won't go to prison for it because that MP didn't.
Yeah. I think it's the worst thing ever. I don't know, are the judges going soft or not? I'm not really sure. Because here's a man, and it's all on video, so there's no need to argue anything. He pleaded guilty because he couldn't really do anything else. And he is an elected representative in our parliament. The first thing, surely, that should happen and should be available is that he should have been kicked out. He should lose his seat. He shouldn't be allowed to go back into Parliament.
He will do, but he'll get recalled.
Well, let's hope so. But at the moment, of course, he is clinging desperately to his £91,000 a year salary, because I suspect he, like many other politicians, MPs in our parliament, would have no chance whatsoever of ever earning that kind of money anywhere else because they simply don't have the talent. So, was he a man? Did he fall on his sword the moment he was convicted and resigned? No. Of course he didn't. He's clinging on in a very undignified fashion, which tells me just about everything I need to know about this revolting man.
But the judge let him out, and this judge is the same judge who put some people in for hurty words for 3 years. We've got a sort of political activist judiciary that we can't actually change because Tony Blair changed the laws. We need to actually reform all that, don't we?
Well, of course, we have the Sentencing Council. That bunch of nobodies that we've no idea who they are, and they hand down these guidelines to judges who are always terrified of having their sentences appealed. They don't want to go to the Court of Appeal and have their reputation trashed. Besides, too many of these sentences are fluffy, wokey, and too liberal, in my opinion, which is why the criminals currently rule the roost on the streets of Britain. Crime is increasing, conviction rates are falling at a catastrophic rate, and quite simply, we're all a bit less safe. What we need is deterrence, proper deterrence, to make people think twice.
I don't know why we were showing that little bit on there just now, which was him at the end of it. We should show the bit where he actually is hitting him.
Hit him 5 times.
The thing is, you hit somebody in the head, okay, you can kill them just with one punch. You hit them the wrong way or whatever, or there, you see, look at this.
Very violent punches.
He's an absolute thug, and he's still got his seat in Parliament. And not only that, he was sentenced to 10 weeks, and I quite frankly think he should have been sentenced to maybe 1 or 2 years, and he's got out.
I'm entirely with you, James. he should have got a much longer sentence, and it should have been a custodial one, which he should currently be serving. Any experienced murder squad detective will tell you about cases that they worked on where it took just one punch to take somebody's life. Sadly, these kind of crimes happen far too frequently. And so, to reiterate, as people spill out of pubs the length and breadth of the country, some of whom are unfortunately intoxicated, where is the deterrent? Where is somebody being able to say to them, don't have a fight with that bloke because you'll go to jail. You'll serve a long time in prison. Don't do it. It's not worth it, and it's not the right thing to do. No, those deterrents are now not in existence.
What should we do with the police? Because obviously the judiciary needs reforming, but the police also. This is why we've got crime so rife and shoplifting. What should happen to the police?
Well, that's the fault of the judiciary, really.
Well,
and
the police are also woke and useless.
The people who are in charge of the police.
The whole system.
Yeah, we need a force. We don't want a service.
Indeed. Well, unfortunately, all our senior police officers these days have all trotted off to university to get their degrees, and they've got all their letters after their names, and they love academia and academics and qualifications. And, of course, they've all been indoctrinated with fluffy, flaky, wokey nonsense when they've been in universities.
And you don't get promoted if you don't have the right views. You have to toe the line.
Speak the right language, which is a language all of their own. Be as fluffy as you possibly can, and really get away from the front line of policing, the rough and tumble, the rolling around on pavements with people, because they think it's all a little bit beneath them.
Peter, thank you very much indeed. Always good to talk. Mr. Peter Blakesley, former Metropolitan Police Detective, and his thoughts on the police, the judiciary. And, of course, it all comes down to the well, it doesn't come down to the wimpish government. It comes down to the wimpish politicians who are all... I mean, I look at Question Time and I just wonder who would vote for a Liberal Democrat?
Well, everything has been infiltrated. The police, the judiciary, the universities, the schools. I mean, everything.
What is the point of a Liberal Democrat? Can anybody tell me? If you're a Liberal Democrat, ring me and tell me what is the point of you. Stevie in Manchester, you're on the air. Stephen.
I think you should be taken off the air just for saying Liberal Democrat. I mean, they are shocking, aren't they? When you look at the last general election campaign, he was just waterboarding all the time, wasn't he? He was just
and he looks a bit like Wayne Rooney. No, not waterboarding.
Not
surfboarding. Waterboarding is a form of torture.
Actually, probably that's like torture, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. You know what I mean? He was paddling about anyway.
Anyway, what is it we can do for you, Stephen?
I was a bit shocked today with Donald, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah, go on. Why?
Well, because I kind of thought Zelensky was a bit like a rabbit in the headlights. First of all, that little fat, chubby guy with the beard, what's he called? Oh, sorry, J.D. Vance.
No, you're too stupid, Stephen, thank you. I mean, quite frankly, if you're going to be rude about the saviours of the world...
He's the next president.
I can't really see what is the point of... You know, why come on and say something like that? He's not chubby, he's not fat.
He looks a bit like Benny Hill, though, doesn't he? He looks a bit like Benny Hill.
He doesn't look anything like Benny Hill. Are you completely stupid? Honestly, doesn't look like Jeremy Beadle either. And I don't think Zelensky looked like he was a rabbit in the headlights. I think Zelensky engineered the things to go the way they did.
He was panicking, wasn't he? Because he knows if they do, he'll be out of a job probably.
Let's talk to Teddy. He's a new caller. Teddy, you're on the air.
Toady, is it?
Is it Teddy? It says Teddy to me.
Toady.
Toady? Is this toadfish?
K-O-D-I. Toady, James. How are you?
Toady, I'm okay.
No, Toby. There's no such name as Toady.
Why does it say Toady there?
He said it's Toby.
Hang on, can we get this right? How do you spell your name?
K-O-D-I.
Right, Toady.
No such name.
T-O-D-I.
There's no name, Toady.
It is, because this is Toady.
Oh, is it?
My goodness.
What is Toady short for?
Toadfish, isn't it?
It's okay, K-O-D. K-O-D-I, James.
Anyway, I don't know why they're getting
Cody.
in the control room.
It's Cody.
Oh,
Cody. That's a real name.
No, it is a real name. Thank you. Right. Okay. The reason I call, quite frankly, is I think what we witnessed today.
Can you take the cloth off your mouth?
The cloth?
No, it's a very bad line. Tell you what we'll do. We will try and get you on another line, and then we won't have to call you Toady or Teddy, or we can then talk to you as Cody properly. Trevor from Hartlepool.
Monkey hangers.
Apparently a new caller. Don't call him a monkey hanger.
They are.
I know. Trevor, what can we do for you?
Mate, I just want to say your radio station, your TV station is a breath of fresh air. Honestly, just listening to what you do and everything, I just want to say thanks to what you all off. Listening to Trump there, that was box office, from Trump. It was box office. It really was. You know, you kind of want someone you kind of want Starmer to stand on the line in Trafalgar Square with the Union Jack around his back and to say something.
I don't think Starmer is doing us any favours. He's just come out and said he supports Zelensky, and we all support Ukraine and the country of Ukraine. But you know, he's come out and basically said he totally disagrees with President Trump.
He's a warmonger. Ridiculous.
Yeah. I literally shared the video, driving on my friends, and they're all sharing it back, and all just wow. Everyone's just wow, what a thing to say. You know, he just didn't back down.
But remember, Blair lied for Iraq. He lied and he got loads of people killed, wouldn't put his own kids in. And you know, Starmer is just the next generation that Blair set up the system for.
Well, if you agree or not with Trump or anything, he's like, right, this is how it is. I'm just trying to do the right thing.
Exactly.
Here.
Yeah, I agree. Even though Lady W and I have a disagreement over this.
Really?
She thinks that he was being bullied, and a lot of her friends do.
Sort of.
So I was beginning to question my own views for a moment. But you know,
that's not a bad thing.
You always have to disagree with people you love.
Yeah.
It actually makes the love stronger.
Spicy.
Yeah. We're going to take a little break. I'm going to come back after the news now. I've decided to take some calls.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Okie doke, here we go. Very good Friday evening to me, Unleashed Ashes here.
Good Shabbos.
Tonight. And will you stop doing all this religious rubbish?
Well, you know, because I'm here. I shouldn't really be working on a day
I am
like
not
this.
having religion
of
any kind into my programme.
By the way, get Wales mug. I got sent a mug, and I think you've got one as well. Have you seen the mug? Look at this, it's
What?
fantastic. It's a mug. Look, it says, look, starring Ash. Get Wales one. Get Wales. Oh, he didn't get one.
I'm not sure that I want one like that. It's very cheap.
Oh,
to be honest
Carrington,
with you.
you've
Very
got
cheap.
Swizzlers if you want any Swizzlers.
No, I
and
don't.
Love
I
Heart.
don't
They're
want
white.
any of that. No,
Oh,
no.
Sorry,
It's the same one that sent
I
me.
thought she'd sent you one.
No. I get bottles of
Oh, dear,
champagne, which I'm more
really
than
messed
happy
that up.
about. Right. Okay. Shall we go back to the calls? I'm
Yeah,
going to
no,
stay
yeah.
on for another 15 minutes or so to the next
Play it by ear.
break, if that's okay with you. Cody, we got you now in Watford. Hi, Cody.
Hello, James. Hello. What I was going to say, I think what happened today between Zelensky and Trump is a lesson in the naked truth of negotiating.
That's what was good about it.
And I've got nothing, there's nothing wrong with that. The only problem that we have is that we were invited, they broke the fifth wall by allowing us to see what happens behind closed doors.
Transparency.
And unfortunately, most people aren't used to seeing how negotiations are made. And some, one of the best assets.
Do you know, I wonder whether they actually bothered to have lunch, the way Zelensky flounced out.
He left at the White House.
I mean,
He was asked, he was thrown out.
Oh, the White House asked him to go, did they?
You better leave.
Oh, right.
Like our warning at the beginning of the show.
I think he was asked to leave to calm down. I can't see Trump losing out on making peace for the world, but also negotiating on an economic, what do you call it?
I mean, you know, Putin has to be chastised, and he has to be told, you cannot invade a sovereign nation. He has, and I think that Trump will make those points.
Well, that was a genius of the mineral deal, because America won't paying back with the minerals, and then
Yeah.
Putin won't attack because there's American national interest in Ukraine. It's a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
But what we can't do is allow Starmer and the rest of them to pipe up now.
No.
They have to have 4 years or 3 years to do something about it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm slightly embarrassed that Starmer has done what he's done.
The
today.
Germans already refused him, didn't they? Which is good. And we haven't got the force that we had in World War II to do anything like that.
No, nowhere near.
Let's just hope for the best.
Cody, call us again. Thank you for that. Robert's in Sunderland. Robert.
Aye, it's just a question of kids being abused in care back in the day. I mean, I'm 57 now, right? And I was 11-year-old when I got kicked to bits in that stand-up castle proof school.
So what is the point you've come on? We haven't been talking about that, but what is it you want to say?
The point is, I can't get closure because it says it's an historic case.
Oh, hang on. You're phoning me about a court case. You want to talk about on air?
No, it's not even a court case. They will not.
Yeah, well, I'm not here. Yeah. Sorry, no, go away. I'm not here to talk about court cases.
No, it's not court, but go to the police and persist with it, or go to your MP, because there's no such thing as historic cases.
Oh, you guys out there, bloody listen to what's going on, or there will be trouble. Goodbye. I've told you what to do, Robert. You know, we cannot discuss something like that. We do not know both sides of the story. And once people's names are mentioned, we can be in trouble.
You've got to go to the police with that and insist, and go to your MP if they refuse
and
to
I
do
feel really sorry if what you're telling us is true.
Well, it
I'm sure
happened a lot
is.
in the 70s. It did.
I am sure it's absolutely true, but you must go to the police. And if the police don't take you seriously, then you must go to your local member of parliament.
Or the press as well, your local press.
We can't talk about it without knowing either side of the story. We can't,
Go to news, the local newspapers.
If you send us in a text about it or a letter about it or something like that.
What's the Sunderland paper? You must know what the Sunderland Echo.
It was the Sunderland Echo, yeah. Paul in, where's that?
Crawley.
Yeah, Paul, crawling in Crawley. Paul.
Hello.
Paul the Crawler.
Yeah, Paul.
Lovely to be with you guys. I mean, I found that really enlightening and really refreshing today to see two guys, the way that they negotiated. Now, the thing is, what I wanted to say is, Trump keeps going on about stopping killing, stopping the war, however it's done, and Zelensky said, I'm not going to accept a ceasefire. I mean, most wars are finished by negotiation. I mean,
all wars, I think.
Well, Zelensky's a billionaire now, so that tells you something. You don't get billions of pounds from being a leader, so there's 100 billion gone missing. He wants to keep it going.
But the Second World War didn't finish by negotiation.
Well, no, but the whole world turned on the Nazis.
You're not going to beat Putin. He's they're the biggest nuclear power in the world, Putin.
But
Russia.
What the other point I wanted to say is that there are winners and losers in wars, and the only winners at this precise moment in time, in my view, is the arms manufacturers and the arms dealers.
Yeah, NATO. I mean, they did promise after the wall came down that NATO wouldn't expand, and they did. America wouldn't accept missiles in Canada pointing at them and Mexico, and Putin's doing the same. They pushed it too far.
Yeah. And you know, if you cast your mind back, that I'm sure both of you can remember the Greenham Common.
James was telling me, well, I don't. Obviously, I wasn't born, but
but the Green. James, you remember the.
It was all women, though, wasn't it?
Of course, I do.
It was all women against, and protesting against having nuclear weapons at Greenham Common.
Yeah.
Well, okay, what are they going to do then when they start lobbying?
The problem is that our nuclear weapons have not been kept up to date.
No,
and they should have been.
Whether they work, James, no one knows.
Yeah.
There's only one way to find out.
They did have a little problem launching them, didn't they?
They tried missiles, but America obviously have bases here with nuclear missiles.
How many nuclear subs have we got?
I think four.
Yeah,
you only need one.
We're not really supposed to say or no, but we haven't got many.
Oh, you forget I said that.
Yeah. And I think you absolutely make a really good point, Paul. You make a really good point. Thank you for that. Let's move on quickly to Matthew in Devon. Matthew, you're on the air.
Evening, gents.
Matthew.
I'm Trump. I think he's fantastic. If only we had more leaders like him in the world, then perhaps the world would be in a far better place. The point I just want to quickly make is the state of politics in this country. I mean, Slimeball Starmer creeping up to Trump this week was just sickening after what he'd said about him a few years ago. And David Lammy, for that matter, as well, sat there smiling like a...
Stuffing his face with chicken.
Yeah,
you know, smiling like a Cheshire cat. He was tweeting out 5 years ago, with the original state visit, slating Trump. So it's amazing how he's changed so quickly. And why doesn't he resign like the other useless dodgers resigned over this cut to foreign aid, which is so big on? They're just all hypocrites.
And Trump does care about lives, because I remember he sent a jet to kill an Iranian general, and he said, how many innocent people will be killed? And they said 150, and he called it off. Now, Obama and Blair and Bush and Keir Starmer, they don't care about lives. They don't care. They're just looking. But actually, he's a real person, Trump. He was a businessman, not a politician. He cares about killing people.
That's why he's so good. That's why Trump is so good, because he's not a politician. He's a businessman. And he cares for America.
One thing this does prove is that parts of the public are very easily led by politicians. So if you put on this nicey front as a politician, and because you want everybody to love you and then everybody
they
vote
fall for it,
you.
don't they? The fools fall for it.
A lot of people fall for it. And I thought what we saw today was interesting to see two people from different countries actually saying what they felt.
Well, both not politicians, both from showbiz, so it was actually real and transparent, which was very refreshing.
Why does Zelensky have to dress like that?
Well, he's trying to be like Churchill, because during the war, do you remember Churchill had that special suit he had made? And he's not Churchill.
Just quickly as well, I'm a Reform member, and Nigel was down in Cornwall the other day, and I was there Monday evening. He's definitely what we need in this country. I mean, Kemi Badenoch, I think she's absolutely useless.
Rupert Everett, he's great. Is it Rupert?
Starmer to account
not Everett, no, Rupert Lowe.
You are funny.
Rupert Everett's great though as well. Yeah.
Matthew, you make a good point. Thank you very much
He's
indeed.
not reformed though.
Chris is in the West Midlands. Chris, good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, James, and good evening, Ash.
All right, man.
Ash, I'd like to say you nailed it when you said that Zelensky's a warmonger. And also, I thought earlier when I saw it, he wants to be another Churchill. When the reporter said to him, why have you come dressed like that? Why couldn't you put a suit on? And you could see that Zelensky was physically like, what's your problem?
Yeah.
I saw that and I heard it.
Small man syndrome as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I know he wants to look different, he wants to look everything else, but it doesn't help, in my view. Although, having said that, there are a lot of people, as soon as Trump won the election, they burst into tears. They said the end of the world is nigh and all that other rubbish, which I was quite worried about, to be honest with you, Chris.
Yeah, well, when you can see full on that Putin wants a way out and to save face, like the Chinese always like to save face, and the Japanese. So he turned up at Saudi Arabia to talk with Trump. Right?
Yep.
Now, they didn't have Zelensky there. Why? Because they both know he's a warmonger. He wants to go out like Churchill. Oh, look how well I've done. And he's not doing well.
Financially, he's done very well, though.
Yeah. Make a good point, Chris. Thank you very much indeed. Let's talk to Jerry in Burton-on-Trent. If you want to get on, this is my last call. I'm going to make a move then and leave it to you. But if you want to call us, 0344 499 1000. And Andrew Eborn is going to come and sit in with you just to hold your hand.
Thanks,
and,
man. I like holding his hand.
Keep your nappies changed,
He's my lawyer.
etc. Chris, Jerry, good evening.
Go, Jerry.
Good evening, James and Ash. And by the way, James, just a quick word. Thanks for all those recommendations and your curry recommendations many years ago. I took up the suggestion and went to the Lucky Star at Newbury. Fantastic, thanks to you.
Good.
But about Zelensky and so on, let's just stop and think for a minute why Trump might be a little bit aggrieved with Ukraine. When you think about it, Biden, his son, doing deals. Now, hang on a second. He knows, Trump knows, and we all know really, there wouldn't be a war with Putin had Trump really got a handle on things. And the fact is, Trump's had to put up with all this vilification over Russia, which is what he said with the Biden conspiracies and impeachments and everything else. He must be sick to the back teeth with the corruption that's gone on in Ukraine, the money that's gone over to Biden, not least of which, Zelensky even campaigned for Kamala Harris in Pennsylvania, for heaven's sake.
And crooked Hillary's emails and the Biden laptop and Twitter, which cost him that election. So why would he be helping Zelensky out?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
that is a good point.
Yeah.
The totality of it all is to say, my God, this guy, and you talk about negotiation, and the whole time throughout the 3 years, what progress was made to try and end the war?
Just death.
They don't think about that, do they?
No.
A million on each side, I think, have died. A million.
Yeah. Jerry, good point. Thank you very much indeed for your call. If you missed me, you could check out my podcast.
Are you definitely going? You're not going to do
Tales
another...
of the Whales.
One
No, I'm
more
definitely
wafer
going.
thin mint?
I'm having what they call at the moment, is one of the things about the meds.
Hot flush.
I'm having a hot flush, which does make life
It's the
very
change
difficult.
time. It's the change.
Yeah, well, it's my hormones.
You'll start
all up and down the
lactating
creek.
soon, don't you?
Hopefully back next Friday. In the meantime, you can check out the podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. Tales of the Whales.
See, it is Wales.
And no, it's WHALE apostrophe.
Tales
S.
of the Whales.
Take a break.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is...
I'll see you later, man. Yeah, I know. He's just got, you know, he gets on a bit. It's can you send to me? It's like cricket, isn't it? Anyway, yeah, it's the James Wells show, but he's just left, as you can see, and so it's me and Andrew Eborn, and we're taking your calls 03444991000. Give us a ring. But before all that, going to speak to Donica McCarthy, a political commentator we spoke to before, and we're going to talk about the BBC may face investigation over Gaza. The counter-terrorist squad, I think, are already starting investigations. Hi, Donica.
Good evening, Ash. How are you? Sorry to miss James. I hope he feels better soon.
Yeah, I don't think it was anything you said, but yeah, he'll be back next week. So, what's your view on this disgraceful documentary that went out, and they didn't even tell us it was the son of a terrorist, and that they mistranslated so it didn't say Jews and said Israelis, and they paid a prescribed terrorist group possibly many thousands of pounds. What's your view on it?
I think, well, it's the son of the civil servant who is in charge of the Ministry for Agriculture.
For Hamas, yeah, so he's a terrorist.
And Hamas is the government, the elected government of
a terrorist government, yeah.
Yeah, there are terrorists on both sides, you're right.
I didn't say that. Hamas are a prescribed terrorist group. Factually, that's factual. That's factual. Israel,
I said you're right. I said agree with you.
Yeah. Oh, good, yeah.
I said I agree with you. Yes, there is terrorists in the Hamas government, but there are also terrorists on the Zionist side.
No, there's not. There's not. I mean, who are you talking about? That's they're a democratically elected government.
Yeah, the elected government of a migrant colonial population.
Well, no, most of them have come from the Arab lands. Over 50% come from the Arab lands that were expelled. That's where there's real apartheid. They're kicked out of all the Arab countries around them, and they moved to Israel.
You're correct.
In their ancestral land.
Yeah, you're correct. Most of the people in Israel are actually migrants from across the Middle East and from Europe. And
most are from the Middle East, actually, over 51%.
Not actually from Palestine. Prior to the Balfour Declaration...
Well, let's forget all that. Let's talk about the BBC documentary. This is what we're here for.
Prior to the Balfour Declaration, the population of Palestine was 8% Jewish.
OK. Well, we're not talking about that. But what about the BBC documentary? This is a prescribed terrorist group. Why are we paying them? Why are we using one of the sons of this terrorist group and not even reporting it? Why are they mistranslating Jew as Israeli?
It's the son of a civil servant who actually runs the
Hamas. Yeah, for Hamas. You don't get a gig in Hamas without being a terrorist.
Well, come on, Ash, are we going to have a conversation, or can
well, if you keep saying things like that, look, Andrew, what did you want to say?
No, I think it's
so. Actually, if you actually look at it, the actual situation is that.
10 seconds, because I said George or not war. Let's get to the bottom of this. Let's get to the facts, because there's a couple of things here. The fact is, it wasn't disclosed that he was Hamas's Deputy Minister of Agriculture. That was wrong, wasn't it?
So we agree with that. So it was the Minister of Agriculture. And I actually think we're in Britain. Look, talkTV is the voice of free speech. Why don't we have free speech for both sides on this?
No, absolutely. I'm trying to give you an opportunity. That's the thing. I won't harry you. You've absolutely got the chance to answer. But that was a key fact, wasn't it? It was an undisclosed connection by the filmmaker. That was wrong, wasn't it?
I agreed. I agreed it was wrong that it wasn't revealed that he was the agricultural minister's son. I don't agree that he should be censored for that. I believe we should have free speech, and both sides of the conflict should have access to the BBC.
Free speech is absolutely right, but you need to make sure. I just always say sunlight's the best disinfectant. If you don't disclose all the key facts, it makes people suspicious. It doesn't help the dialogue, does it?
Well, both of us agree with that.
Okay.
All three of us agree.
So I'm trying to find the common ground, so that's helpful.
I said in the beginning...
stop agreeing, but how... You wouldn't be able to climb you wouldn't be able to climb up in Hamas and not sort of agree with their policies. Do you think he's against what happened on October the 7th, the agricultural minister? Or do you think he's supporting, like we saw, 90% of the population who actually voted for Hamas to be their government?
I think actually we're in a situation where actually we have a conflict in Palestine between a massive Zionist immigration population and the indigenous population, the Palestinians. And I think we, Britain, should actually not take sides on this. We should not be prescribing one side or the other. We should facilitate communication, and we should facilitate the voices of both sides. I think this child represents the 15,000 kids that have been massacred over the last 18 months, and that child should have a voice in our society.
But it was one-sided, wasn't it?
Just as the son of the Israeli minister should have a voice.
Well, he hasn't got that though, has he? Should we be paying money to Should we be paying money to a prescribed terrorist group? I mean, it's actually illegal.
We paid money to a 14-year-old kid for narrating.
Well, his parents. Obviously, he would have had to get his parents' permission. You can't employ a child without the parents' permission.
I think the problem here is we in Britain have shut down free speech on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and we should not be doing that. We, as the imperial power that granted Palestine to the Zionist movement, have a huge responsibility.
They are the indigenous population, the Jews of Israel, you know. You can see that in the DNA.
Well, there is much of the indigenous population of Palestine as the Welsh are of London. You know, that was 2,000 years ago, Ash. Okay. How long do we keep history going?
Well, the Palestinian population wasn't that long now.
Let's get back to the central issue here, because as you just agreed with me earlier, it was wrong not to do that. The BBC have an obligation to vet contributors properly. That's what they have to do. This wasn't disclosed. It was a material fact, which we both agree should have been disclosed. And that's what's being looked at. That's what's called the controversy.
So we all agree that should have happened. And what we hopefully may agree is that having sorted that out and making sure that the child narrator is properly attributed, should we, in the interest of free speech, allow the British public to see this movie and make our own judgment on it.
But why should you get a Hamas? What do you think about the translation when they said the Jews are coming in to kill us, and the BBC translated it as the Israelis? In the Hamas charter, it says kill the Jews, not Israelis. What do you think about that mistranslation? What do you think about that mistranslation, and why did they do it?
I think the issue of the use of the word Zionist and the use of the word Israeli and the use of the word Jew is a minefield for everybody involved in this. And actually,
but they said Jew, and the BBC translated it as Israeli.
I constantly argue that we should not make we should make a distinction between Zionists and Israelis and
Hamas. Hamas say Jews. They don't even say Israelis or Zionists. They say Jews. Hamas in their charter.
I'm trying to tease out the point you're trying to make.
If you could.
And the point is that Zionists and Israeli government constantly try to equate Jewishness.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about their words saying Jew. I'm talking about them saying the Jews are coming to kill us.
What they have done is exactly what the Zionists ask us all to do. They ask us to say being a Zionist is the same as being Jew. I say
what are you talking about? They're saying Jews, and it's being mistranslated as Zionist, as Israelis.
Yeah.
Andrew,
can I also make this point, because it's good to talk this through. The bottom line is that even the BBC say that it needs further due diligence. That didn't happen, and that's the problem.
No, look, all three of us agree with that. I want the due diligence to happen. I want the proper attribution to happen, but I want both sides to be heard.
But it hasn't happened. It didn't happen. That's in the past. Shouldn't they be investigated for supporting a prescribed terror group?
I think I don't understand why we prescribe one side of a conflict in a country that's 3,000 miles from us. Why can't we?
It's the law that they're a prescribed terrorist organisation.
It doesn't matter where you are in the world. A lot of them have moved here, actually. We have a lot of the former leaders here.
I should also say, I should also say,
48,000 people.
I should also say it's an offence to support a prescribed terrorist organisation. So we've got to be very, very careful.
That's why they're being investigated.
I understand that, and what I do not believe it is.
So do you support?
It is by law, so you better be careful, haven't you?
So
what
do you? Let me ask you this very clearly.
We are supposed in a free society with free speech.
Okay.
I don't support Hamas. I don't support the Zionist government.
Do you condemn her? Let me ask you this very simple question. Let me ask you this. Your thought. Do you condemn Hamas?
I condemn their terrorism as much as I condemn the Israeli terrorism.
Do you condemn Hamas?
Both sides. I condemn their terrorism.
Do you condemn Hamas?
I don't condemn. I condemn both sides.
One's a terror organisation, one's a democratically elected government that was attacked.
It's really clear.
One is an industrial terrorist organisation.
It's really clear because it's a criminal offence.
The
10 seconds. It is a criminal offence to support a terrorist organisation. Hamas is a prescribed terrorist organisation. So therefore, I ask you just a yes or no answer. Do you support Hamas?
I do not support Hamas.
You do not support. So you condemn Hamas.
Government. Sorry?
You condemn Hamas.
I condemn Hamas's terrorism. I condemn the Israeli government.
Yeah, but the Israelis aren't a prescribed terrorist group.
But they should be, because they are the ones who are actually...
Britain a terrorist group for going into Iraq And Afghanistan, is Britain a terrorist group?
The Israeli government is up against, in the international courts, has been condemned by Amnesty International.
That's a load of rubbish. That was just South Africa being paid off by Iran. We all know what happened then. The UN are obviously bent because all the acts are against Israel, all the sanctions. No, not North Korea or Iran, who run the human rights, who were head of the human rights at the UN for a time. What do you think of Gary Lineker and Miriam Margolis signing this letter with Mike Lee and the other that we all know about? What do you support that lot? Saying that the documentary should go back on air?
I'm a former artist myself, and I think the artists in this in this country stand up for free speech. I want free speech for the Zionist government. I want free speech for the Hamas opposition to...
But if the broadcasters themselves, and this is where we were agreeing just a moment ago, so let's progress on that. What we were saying earlier, the BBC themselves say, and this is their words, there are serious flaws in this programme. If there are serious flaws in this programme, it shouldn't be broadcast, should it?
I would like to see the attribution sorted. I would like, if there's any flaws, I sort of, but I do believe in the interest of free speech, we should be allowed to see it.
But what about, well, I gave you one already, one of the flaws where it was translated instead of Jews as Israelis. Wouldn't you say that should be changed?
And my response to that is the Israeli government constantly says that Zionism and Judaism is the same.
Yeah, but so when they say Jews, they should change it to Israelis. Should they, the BBC? They should mistranslate, is what you're agreeing with that.
Well, after the Israeli government, they say that Judaism and Zionism are the same. I don't believe that. I think that's terribly dangerous.
All right, but I'm asking you, if one of the terrorists or someone in the Palestinian in Gaza says Jews, should they translate it as Jews? Or should they do what they do and be their PR and sort of smooth it over, call it Israeli?
In translation, I think it should be translated accurately. Of course,
okay.
I do.
And should the other serious flaws that the BBC admit also be addressed?
You're talking about the shoes or the hair?
I'm talking about the serious flaws. What the BBC classify as serious flaws.
I've read as many reports as I could before I came on, and the most serious flaw I think they seem to have identified is that the kid was misattributed as not being the son of a civil servant.
There's thousands of other kids out there, isn't it weird how they found the son of one of the ministers?
I think it's really crucial that the voice of those 15,000 Palestinian kids who have died over the last 18 months...
Some of them killed by Hamas, misfired missiles.
He's heard of them. I think Hamas should be heard. I think the Zionist government should be heard. I think we should, as Britons, should not take a side. We should try and be peaceful.
That's like saying the Nazis should be heard. Would you have approved of the Nazis speaking out and having a documentary on their point of view?
Which, if we had an invasion of this country, do you think the resistance to the invasion should be heard?
Well, I think we're getting slightly sidetracked. This is such a clear issue, which we agreed on beforehand. The BBC have said there are serious flaws in this. If a programme's got serious flaws, it shouldn't be aired in that form, should it?
I think the crucial difference between the three of us is that I believe that actually both sides should be heard fairly, and you guys seem to think only one side should be heard.
Well, what about the cameraman who filmed it, who actually on October the 7th was celebrating the October, the murders, the rapes, the beheadings? He was celebrating it, the cameraman. Is that all right?
Of course not, but have you seen the celebrations in Israel over the slaughter in Gaza?
No, I haven't.
What we do agree on,
I haven't seen that. It doesn't happen on that side.
As we all say,
they don't celebrate it. They don't want innocent civilians to be killed.
The first casualty, 10 seconds, the first casualty in war is the truth. We always say that. The BBC themselves, just be clear on this, have said there are serious flaws. Whilst there are still serious flaws, whatever the arguments are about trying to represent certain sides, if there are serious flaws, it should not be aired in its current form, should it?
We have said
should
that
it?
5 times. We are all agreed.
We're all agreed. OK, so let's work on that basis then. Got serious flaws. The BBC had said that. Those flaws need to be corrected.
And broadcast then. Totally agreed with that.
But don't you think the BBC has had a constant bias? I mean, we saw the attack by Islamic Jihad, and Jeremy Bowen immediately announced 500 people killed, which is preposterous in a missile attack. And it turned out, I think it was single figures. We've seen loads. I've had to apologise. Loads have been
on both sides. But look,
you don't. We don't.
Ash,
they have open journalism. In fact, a lot of the Israeli papers are very anti-Netanyahu.
And I would also say, these are again the BBC's own words, and firstly, I agree that casualties on all sides are appalling. I absolutely agree with that. The BBC themselves say, and it's their own words, they called this a trust-damaging failure. And I always say trust comes in on foot and leaves on horseback. The BBC cannot afford this loss of trust any further. And I think when there are these fatal flaws, and as we all agree, casualties are on any side.
No, but there's a difference between casualties that are just accidental, they don't want to kill, and then strangling babies. Can you not see the difference? Then the whole population celebrated as these strangled babies are brought out, and the mother's body, it turned out it wasn't. And all celebrating, the whole of Gaza there celebrating. What do you think about that?
I think people celebrating on both sides horrific.
They don't do that on the Israeli side.
I have seen it.
Where have you seen it?
I see it on TV.
We see it every time in Gaza. When have you seen them celebrating killing people in Israel? It doesn't happen. You're making it up.
I've seen Israeli government ministers calling for the extermination.
That's not the same thing as the population celebrating, having a party because there's loads of Gazans been killed. Doesn't happen. You're making stuff up.
I'm not making up.
Of course you are.
I can send you the links. There are
send me the links. Yeah.
Ministers, Israeli government.
We're
ministers,
not talking about again. You've switched it because you haven't got an answer. Because really, you know, there aren't any pictures of the population celebrating. You're weaseling out of it, aren't you? Forget the ministers. What about the population? Do you see the Israeli population all celebrating?
Yes, they actually have.
Oh, now you're changing it to that because you know I've got you on the other one.
No,
where's that then? Where are the links for that? The population celebrating in Israel and spitting on the bodies of dead people, beating dead girls in the back of a van with a stick and strangling babies. Where have you seen Israel? They haven't even done that, but where have you seen them celebrating?
I have seen people sitting in chairs overlooking the Gaza slaughter, drinking beers, celebrating what's happened. There is
3 or 4 people. That is just people looking at war.
No, Ash, seriously, if you actually look to the...
I've seen that. I saw people. That was just warfare and people going, great, this is our country striking back. It wasn't really celebrating innocent people being killed. Israel do all they can to avoid innocent civilians. I've seen the footage of them actually calling off raids because they say, look, there's children there, there's innocent people killed.
And to balance it, if there is such footage, to make sure it's not unfairly skewed or biased. 10 seconds. To make sure it's not unfairly skewed or biased, we need to look at that sort of side.
It's not a conversation.
Now, go on, Donica.
Having 2 of you shout at me and that may not being able to answer is not a conversation.
You go on. Go ahead then.
Thank you. So, I've forgotten what my point was now because there's so much shouting. What I would say is the United Nations has said there is 48,000 people have died. 80% of them are civilians.
No, that's not true. Half are Hamas terrorists.
I just read the Vatican news agency said 13,000 kids have died.
They're trustworthy, aren't they, the Vatican?
And as Trump said, I'm not shouting at you. So the reality, I'm trying to get to the truth of this because you've got a documentary which the BBC themselves have admitted is skewed. We've all agreed it shouldn't be broadcast if it's skewed. I've agreed, absolutely, horrendous casualties on both sides, and I get that. Ash has his views, and he's made that very, very clear. My point is
facts, actually.
My point at the moment is if it's skewed and the BBC admitted that it hasn't followed the correct editorial process, it is not fit for broadcast, and that's the point.
Well, and I agree.
You agree. Thank you.
No, but I wanted to be cleaned up and broadcast. That's where I wanted us to go. Because I think that it's really crucial. If we're going to get peace in the Middle East, we must hear both sides.
OK, but just one more thing.
Talk, not war.
About half the people killed are terrorists and half the people are innocent civilians.
No, that's not true.
Well, it is true. It's been looked at.
80%
Reuters, right.
have been civilian deaths.
If you speak to Colonel Richard Kemp, lots of other armies of democratic countries are studying how Israel have kept it to 1-to-1, which is unheard of in urban warfare.
The only people saying it's 1-to-1 is a Zionist propaganda.
Military experts like Colonel Richard Kemp, the former head of forces in Afghanistan. Anyway, Donica, we're going to have to agree to disagree, but thanks for coming on. Next, it's the press preview.
Saturday on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Right, it's the James Wells show, but he's gone home. Andrew Eborn is here. Barrister, futurist, he's an expert in intellectual property and lots of other things. But yeah, we want your call 0344 499 1000. But we're going to review tomorrow's papers today. We're starting with the Soaraway Sun and the Fight House. This is unbelievable. Did you see it, Andrew?
I think the whole world saw it.
Trump and Zelensky at it in the Oval Office, and it was amazing because people are going, well, this was very unprofessional and unpolitical. It was transparent, and this is what we want to see, isn't it, Andrew?
It's totally white heat in the White House, and I predicted was absolutely planned theatrics. This is what happened. The way that J.D. Vance with his little prods and so on and so forth, even from when Zelensky first came in, not wearing a suit. I mean, come on. I know he's enough of it already. He should be dressed up. It's about respect. Anybody who understands Trump, that the way you don't do it is upset him. And it all goes back, actually, to about 2019 and a phone call that they had asking about the Biden and so on and so forth.
That's where it goes
There's
back.
A lot of history.
It's payback as well.
It's payback. And you know that this was completely the wrong way of doing it. And he was basically going in there trying to look for an ally, and he ended up being humiliated.
Well, we saw Trump get properly angry, didn't we? And when he gets angry, he becomes quite a dominant force, and he speaks a lot of sense in what he said.
Interesting. It's very rare you see Trump get angry in public. Yeah. What's happened is Trump has been moulded. I've made this point before by a number of people. One of whom was the person, which is the person who created Mark Burnett, who created The Apprentice. He created Trump as a character on that sort of basis. The other people around him, he's the last person who speaks to Trump will get his ear. And what's happening, he worked on the basis, you don't tell Trump, you don't speak over him if you want to work on that sort of basis. You need to sort of tease it out in that sort of way. But basically what happens, it was supposed to be less of a diplomatic meeting, and it was more of a bare-knuckle showdown, is what I would say. And this is what happened. And Trump, if you want to draw a crowd, start a fight, Trump knew what was going to happen. What he's also
I'm not sure he did. I think he's ready. I think he's ready for it. From all his business deals, he's ready for whatever happens.
I think what's happened, I'd say, it was absolutely set up as it was basically it was planned. It was a
But
planned,
I saw what really
dramatic.
made Trump angry. It was when Zelensky said, hey, if you let him win, then he'll come for the whole world. And that's obviously a load of rubbish. And Trump actually picked up on that and said, that's not substantiated. That's not going to, you don't know that. And that's when Trump really got wound up, because he saw he was trying to emotionally blackmail him.
And he also said, see what happens for you in the future. I'll tell you what Trump's doing.
Exactly.
He's appealing to half the Americans who turning around, and actually a number of the Americans are suffering at the moment with the Doge having all these cuts and so on and so forth.
Fantastic.
And they're all asking, why are we giving so much money to Ukraine?
Billions.
Now that's going to...
And 100 billion's gone missing, and now Zelensky's a billionaire. I mean, ultimately, I think this is a fight between oligarchs over
It's a
land
rocky
and mineral.
road.
Yeah, it's a rocky road. And of course, in the Sun, $2.45 for in your club card for your cream eggs. I think you only get 5 now. You used to get 6. Love Split Fern and the TV Boss. Right, let's go on to the next one, and it's the Daily... that's Fern Cotton. Yeah, she split from a TV boss. I never knew she was with a TV boss. Right, OK, the Daily... A transvestite. Oh, OK, say no more. That's quite unusual these days. Quite rare, isn't it? The Daily Express. UK holidays from £15. Must be a pretty crap holiday. And the bust-up leaves Trump's peace talks in crisis. Hopes of a Ukraine peace deal were in tatters last night as Donald Trump publicly accused Zelensky of gambling with World War III. Well, that's the other thing. People going, we've got to fight and beat Putin. How can you beat a nuclear power? The biggest nuclear arsenal, bigger than America. No nuclear powers have ever gone to war together for that very reason. Putin's not going to go, all right, yeah, enough, I quit. You've got to give him an off-ramp, and you've got to stop these. I mean, Russia have lost 1,000. They've ran out of their troops. They've actually brought North Koreans in, who they told them it was a training exercise, and they just use them to get the drones drawn onto them. They just use them and literally as cannon fodder. They're both losing about 1,000 a day, which is what we lost in the whole of the 20-year Afghan campaign. They're losing that on a daily basis.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely horrible. And I always say, look, casualties on both sides, and I think it's absolutely appalling. But you've got Trump demanding demanding gratitude like it's a transaction. And Zelensky...
Well, he's right, though. He's not demanding it for him. He's demanding it for the American people.
I get it.
Isn't he?
And I had to work on that basis, as I said beforehand. He's appealing to his electorate, but Zelensky fighting for survival and not a thank you note. I mean, that's the reality. And he handled it. Zelensky handled it very badly. I can guarantee one thing Trump's going to now do, he would probably announce and say, I'm not going to give any more aid at the moment, thank you. Until you come back and trying to do it properly.
Why do you think Zelensky was rattled? Do you think it's over for him if it does go to peace? I mean, he was out in the cold with the talks. Do you think he's worried about, being out of power?
Well, he's totally out of power. And all this, I'll tell you, there's a nonsense. I looked at this on my show, The Muckrakers, which I do daily, as you know, with all sorts of interesting people.
That's his thing. Elon Musk started on it. He was very controversial. He said Obama's wife was a man called Mike, and Macron's wife is actually his dad.
There you go. We have a different story. Never let the truth stand in the way of a good story.
Exactly.
I also had Roger Stone on, who was one of Trump's advisors, and he basically knows what gets Trump riled. The reality is this: all this talk of a mineral deal, we've done the statistics. The World Bank basically is saying to rebuild Ukraine will cost about $550 billion. The mineral deal is worth nowhere near that, because half of it's gone to Russia anyway. So you need to look at the finances.
And it secures Ukraine, because Putin's not going to start if America have got national interests there, and also China.
It's nonsense. But China, I can tell you, will be watching on very, very carefully to see how this is resolved. Because if this is not resolved...
They're looking at Taiwan, aren't they?
Of course they are. So you need to work on that basis.
What do you think about this Chagos deal? All of a sudden Trump's saying, go ahead. What's all that about?
It's all a bit weird behind the scenes. The way Trump does it, he says everything. It's like tariffs.
Because this is sort of your field, intellectual property. Island is similar to island property. What's the rules, man? Why are we giving it away and paying to give it away?
It's all nonsense. It's all nonsense. The true story is behind the scenes. You need that security bit, which is why the Americans are interested in that sort of stuff. But it costs a lot of money. And so lots of people are watching out for recompense and so on and so forth. The reality is this: behind the scenes, Trump, he said it today. He started off by saying his favourite word was tariffs, and people said, "Why is your favourite word that? Why not love, family, and all that sort of stuff?" He said, "Well, no, those are my fourth favourite word." He does it as a negotiating tool, and he will flip and flop almost in the same way as Starmer flipped and flopped. Was grovelling, embarrassing.
Yeah, but then straight after he was a warmonger saying, "No, we're going to support." He wouldn't have said that in the Oval Office.
No, exactly, and it's nonsense. What's also interesting, though, I can guarantee Trump would not treat Putin in the same way as he treated Zelensky. You can guarantee they're not having that sort of negotiation. And actually, as I say beforehand, Trump tends not to get angry in public. He wants to be calm and collected, and in the same way as your last guest was accusing you of shouting, I think the reality is it's not shouting. We just make the points. You can make the points.
Sometimes you have to make it sternly.
But make it sternly, but make sure that at least there's both sides are being listened to, because that's the way you make an informed decision. But you need to stick to the facts. As I say, there's not enough minerals to do the mineral deal anyway. Zelensky is never going to win this war. All that's happening, and as Trump made the point that if they stop throwing lots of money at it...
It's a meat grinder.
Well, you've got to work on the basis. Why does it need to continue? It's a proxy war is the reality, because it's not. We're not there, as you know, with all that sort of stuff, the NATO and whatever happens. It's basically a proxy war where Ukraine are in that sort of side. There's a wonderful history that we need to look at to put that into perspective, that we need to get to the end game. War is horrible. It's horrible on both sides. There are casualties on both sides. What's being played is a dangerous game. And the narrative of Trump, and I'll tell you what I said beforehand, is
it's the left pushing for war, which is weird, because they're obviously not real left-wing. Anyway, look, Andrew, we've got to take a break. We'll be back with the papers. But give us a ring, 03444991000, because we're going to be spattering it with your calls, and we'll be back in about a minute and a half.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
We'll be doing more papers, and look, there's even more crappy holidays you can get in the Daily Mirror, but we'll do a bit more of that in a minute. But for now, your calls. Fred in County I'm with Andrew Eborn, by the way, and James Wales. He stayed till 11:15, but he's gone home, but he'll be back next Friday. Fred, what do you want to say?
Hi, Fred.
Good evening.
We're going to slow it down a bit because we've all got a bit excited.
Too much of a Diet Coke.
Sorry, Fred.
I just had a little thought.
Yeah.
A bit off the wall, of course, but
good.
Perhaps there's a situation that could develop here where the Chinese step into the void that's being left by America, because they would get peace with Russia as easy as pie, and with all these valuable earths needed. And
well, they've already taken over in Africa, haven't they? But the Chinese are watching to see what America does and whether they can snatch Taiwan.
Exactly. And I honestly think a word with Putin by the Chinese leader, and it could well be left open for...
Well, people can't read what Trump's going to do. In fact, Trump wakes up on a different day, in fact, different hour, and has a different view. In fact, when they said you called Zelensky a dictator the other day, he said, did I? I don't remember saying that.
That's right.
Do you think... Can I ask you something? Because it's great to have your call. I think that the most important thing to Trump is for him to win the Nobel Peace Prize. What do you think?
For the Abraham Accords?
Yes, I certainly think so. Because he delves on peace.
He actually doesn't want any killing. He really does. He's just a normal person. He's a businessman. He hates all this blood and guts. Unlike the vipers like Obama, Blair, Boris Johnson even. He just wanted to become a Churchill and he was useless at it. They're all just vipers, politicians.
And you make a really interesting point as well, because you will recall that Trump in his presidential election campaign said he would finish the war with Ukraine with a couple of phone calls.
In a day. I mean, he didn't quite make a day, but obviously he knew and we knew he didn't mean a day. It's a bit like Boris Johnson in that way. We knew he was lying, whereas the others try and really help. Keir Starmer lies. He doesn't even know what he's lying about.
Yeah. Well, it could well be that Chinese will have it finished within a week.
Thanks then, Fred. Right, let's go to the Daily Mirror. Shock and war. Trump stuns world with vile rant at Zelensky. Ukraine hero is forced home without a deal. He was chucked out, apparently. They said, you got to calm down, mate, and send him over like the bouncer throwing you out of the club. Donald Trump launched into a childish... Oh, you see, they're calling it child. It wasn't childish. I mean, my view on Trump is if you got every American and pushed them into one person and got the average American, you'd end up with someone exactly like Donald Trump.
And I think it's always interesting the words that journalists use, isn't it? They're supposed to try and be balanced and so on and so forth. The reality is we saw the real Donald, and the real Donald...
That's why we liked it.
It was deal-making over decorum, wasn't it? That's what I would call it.
And it is about business and doing deals, and this is what Putin sort of is getting in that way, because he's not a military man. Putin was never in any military.
And as I say, it was planned theatrics. I reckon he had a word with J.D. Vance, which still sounds like a cheap...
He was brilliant, though, wasn't he?
Sounds like a cheap American department store, but he still basically would have had that discussion beforehand and said, I want you to play this role.
Good cop, bad cop. Well, they were both bad cop, weren't they?
And he would not have appreciated that he turned up in this sort of tracksuit thing.
He wasn't even in his fatigues. He was just in a... That's like what we used to wear in 1986, get down Foster menswear.
But it's about respect, and you dress according to the situation and so on and so forth. And I do think we all see Zelensky, and I get it. I get his reason. He's in his battle fatigue and so on and so forth. But you want to have the respect of the people in the room. You'll get more respect if you dress as an appropriate world leader.
He was disrespectful. Do you think that disrespect will have an effect? I think it will with Trump.
Trump is totally about respect.
Yeah.
He wants people to bow down to him. It's about respect and dignity. He knows what will get the American people behind him. What gets the American people behind him is you've been taking all my money and you're not even thankful.
And he said, you haven't got any cards in your hand. You're not in a bargaining position. You need us to do it, and we're not going to do it. So you're no right to sabre rattle with our, troops' lives and put the world.
And that's the point. And that's why he talks about world World War III, Zelensky, well, best advice to Zelensky, he's going to eat a lot of humble pie if it's going to come back to that sort of side. But he's actually weakened his position as a result of that conference.
But I think he knew he was in a bad. I think he was just. I think that's why he looks stressed. He knows he's lost.
No, but he's also, politicians are there to get re-elected. That's what they do, although obviously Trump can't do that again. But Zelensky's there.
Not according to Robert De Niro. He's going to be in power forever.
Well, it could
he's
be interesting.
demented, that guy.
Well, no.
He's ruined his legacy. Do you know him, Robert De Niro? Because Andrew used to be linked with the
I can't possibly comment about that.
He does know him.
I'm not going to possibly comment on that. But the reality is this, is that Zelensky has a weakened his position.
Have you got, Chuck just said, you've got a great new series called Zero Day on Netflix where you play a cop and it's... De Niro, it's not you. He plays a president with dementia, so it sounds like... And a black woman in the White House. It sounds like a documentary.
There you go, all interesting stuff. And your Chuck's in your ear, which is...
That's Netflix thinking Kamala was going to win. That's really blown the series,
well, it's great. I was actually at MIP TV, where they're talking about all these new series in the last few days. It's called MIP TV, which is the big TV festival. So the last few days was all about that.
Oh, you were at the Bergerac thing.
No, that was the week before.
John Nettle's not involved.
But this is about... MIP TV is basically the biggest TV market in the world. Yeah. For the first time, it's been in Cannes for 61 years. Yeah. For the first time ever, we held it in London.
At the Savoy, wasn't it?
It was at the Savoy. And I was one of the presenters there and talking to a lot of people about that sort of stuff. But it is interesting, the way that television is still dominating it. But we're creating characters. What happens? Trump is a master media manipulator. And what he does, he works on the basis, who's watching this? What are the messages they want? And they're turning around and saying that Americans, a lot of his key voters, are turning around and saying billions upon billions have been spent funding somebody else.
They don't want it. The population don't want it. They wanted him in power, and this is where you've got to disconnect with democracy. And we've got it in this country. We're stuck for 4 years with it, but happily in America, it's all changing. It's having a big effect, isn't it? By the way, you know the Savoy. You know who built the Savoy?
Who was that?
D'Oyly Carte.
D'Oyly
It was
Carte.
the first luxury hotel.
It was. It was nice with the theatre and things.
Amazing. And you know, down the alley at the back is where Bob Dylan filmed that.
That's right.
Anyway, we've got a caller, Gemma in Staffordshire.
Hello, Gemma in Staffordshire.
Hi, Gem.
Hello, hi. How are
What's
we?
up, man?
Let me put my ears in because my
put
ears
your
keep
ears
falling
in.
out.
I'll translate. What's going on, Gemma?
Oh, I'm all right.
I'm translating. My ears have gone.
I'm a little bit fed up with this whole American thing now. I mean, I know I've got opinions on it, and I've got opinions on the BBC and their stupid documentary, and I've got opinions on Vance and Trump and Starmer. I've got opinions on them, but...
Well, give us one of them.
Right, well, the BBC, like, literally, what a shower of...
But they've been going on like this for 20 years. You know, they had their report into anti-Semitism that they didn't even... And then they won't let anyone see it because it was that bad. I mean, they've got a history of it going on all the time. There's been 1,500 official complaints since October the 7th.
Yes, Ash. I can't be bothered with them anymore. I pay my licence, right, but actually I don't watch it, so I don't know why I'm paying.
Well, you know, your money will be going to Hamas now as well, funding terrorist organisations.
I'm not really into that.
No. So are you going to keep paying it? And obviously I can't, let's say, break the law. Are you going to stop watching live telly and maybe do what I do? I go to Rumbelow, so they've given me a remote and I can change it. What are you going to do?
Don't you listen to radio, like BBC local radio?
You can listen to radio without a licence, yeah.
Yeah, but what about...
Yeah, you can listen to BBC radio without a TV licence.
I'm not going through this whole shenanigans about what I can and can't do. Right, I pay my licence and that's it. So when I chance on the BBC and they do something bad, I say something about it.
Yeah, but you know, maybe why should the Jewish community be paying for people? In fact, why should the British community? They're anti-Britain. A lot of what they're doing. I mean, it sort of extends to that.
Well, I know.
I mean, you look at, have I got news for you? They used to all have a go at the Tory government, and now you'd think they'd be having a go at the Keir. No, they're still having a go at the Tories and Farage.
The interesting thing is, well, somebody plugs me in so I can hear the callers. The interesting thing is...
You gathered from what I was saying.
I can gather from what you're saying. Exactly. I can gather the route you're going down. The BBC and Tim Davie, who I speak to fairly regularly, and various others within the BBC, they always say they get it right when every government criticises them, because their job is to hold people's feet to the fire. And they talk about trust. I always talk about trust with my usual...
It goes on horseback and comes... No, it goes on foot. Tick it on the bingo. We've already done that one anyway.
But the reality is this, the trust in the media is some of the lowest in the world, about 36%.
But rightfully, the legacy media, as they call it, apart from us... and maybe one other station and maybe a couple of others, they're really in on it. They're not reporting on stuff that's going on.
Never has there been a more appropriate time to have an independent, a public television broadcast, and that's what you need.
But we've got to this state through the media being manipulative, haven't we?
Well, this is the problem, and this is why when you have cases like this documentary, and where they say it's flaws, and I appreciate the caller coming on, and we talked him through it, but the BBC themselves said it was flawed, it didn't follow the editorial process.
They're saying it, but they will brush it under the carpet and carry on. I mean, really, Ofcom have the powers to shut down a station, and they've been so corrupt with their biased news and other things that, you know, there's actually a shout that they should be shut down, but obviously that's not going to happen. But what should happen? I mean, we see it with the police, with the NHS. They're totally actually destroyed and rotten, and you've got to break the whole thing down.
Well, the reality, we need to make sure that we continue shining that spotlight on it, because
it's the best disinfectant.
I thank you. There's another tick there as well.
Sunlight.
No, but it is exactly that sort of situation, and we need to rebuild that trust. We do need a public broadcast. We need an independent public broadcaster who's not dependent on advertising.
They used to be good, didn't they, in the old days? But like you say, I mean, sunlight is the best disinfectant. That's what was so refreshing about what happened in the Oval Office, because we all saw what was happening. The other politicians would have hated that, because they don't do that sort of thing. Look at Keir Starmer patting him on the shoulder, okay, my friend Donald Trump. Trump didn't like that, did he?
Well, no, but he wouldn't like that. I'll tell you what,
he
Trump
liked the letter, though, from Charles.
No, and that's the thing, for him to be the first president ever would be brilliant. And also, Trump was saying, I saw Piers Morgan of this parish was tweeting earlier, said that Trump was on the phone for him for about half an hour today, saying how good the meeting was with Keir Starmer because he brought the letter. And if you
that's all he liked.
No, of course he does. But if you understand the man, it's like any negotiation. Zelensky and his advisors clearly hadn't done their homework. If you knew how to get around Trump and how to negotiate and to say, talk to the people around him, you work out what Trump likes. He likes to be praised. He wants to be recognised as a person of authority. He doesn't like people disagreeing with him in public, and he doesn't forget easily. So a lot of these things, so people like David Lammy...
He doesn't forget, and I don't think he is really friends. He's playing a cool game. They can't like Starmer. They'll have clips of him. Gemma, anyway, thanks for your call. We're going to take more calls after the news. 03444991000, and we'll be going through the papers. What else? Oh, yeah, after the news, we're going to... If you didn't see the Trump and Zelensky getting on, having a big fight, never been seen in politics before, we're going to play it after the news, which is coming up in about a minute. But like I said, you can Twitter me at Virtual Ash, Twitter James Whale at actually X him at Lee James or Andrew.
Andrew Eborn at Octopus TV on more platforms than Paddington.
Anyway, so make sure your calls get in, and you can leave a WhatsApp message to us, and we'll play those out in a bit.
That'd be good.
Yeah, so 03444991000. We'll be back in 2 minutes. It's me and Andrew Eborn. Whale will be back next week. He's gone home. See you then in 2 minutes.
UK. On DAB+. On your smart speaker. On your smart TV. And on your side. This is Talk.
Yeah, he's unleashed, but he's done a Zelensky. We threw him out. No, well, he went home because he'll be back next week at 10, but he was here till 11:15. That's good. I'm here with Andrew Eborn, but give us your call, 03444991000. We're taking your calls, and we're going through the rest of the papers and some other funny stories. But before that, a lot of you haven't seen the big kicking off. This has never been seen before. What happens? This is probably what goes on behind closed doors normally in politics, but it was all transparent in the open. Let's see a few minutes of what happened between Trump and Zelensky in the Oval Office.
What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems, even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly
this. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards.
Playing cards.
Right now, you don't.
You're
playing cards.
Mr. President.
You're playing cards.
Serious.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's back to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once? This entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you? You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you can...
He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country's in big trouble.
Can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No. You've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning. You're not winning this. You have a damn good chance of coming out okay because of us.
Mr. President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
you haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet.
You haven't been alone.
In this cabinet.
We gave you, through this stupid president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military equipment, and your men are brave, but they had to use our military.
What about
if you didn't have our military equipment,
if
you didn't have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days. I heard it from Putin. In 3 days.
Yes.
Yeah, well, Andrew, that was the milk tray man.
It was,
and
the body language says it all. I tell you what.
Hold on, you said he called him a bitch in Ukraine after. I mean, that means he's done, isn't he?
So somebody did the sort of checking of the mouth and things like that. Apparently, did check out on social media. But he walked in hoping for an ally. He left with a bruised ego and no deal.
But do you think
we
he was
are
going to get a deal?
witnessing
Do you think he
Trump rewriting the rules of engagement. No, I think it was planned theatrics. I said beforehand, it's very clear. Trump is basically appealing appealing to his electorate. And the electorate at home is bruised at the moment because they've got this whole Doge thing. They're cutting all sorts of services.
And they're seeing what has happened with their money.
And they're turning around and saying,
they were
where's
paying
my money?
Hamas from October the 7th, I think, $2 billion to keep the war going.
So all of those things they need to look at. But basically, it's a stark lesson in power dynamics, isn't it? Trump is flexing his muscles while Zelensky is pleading for a lifeline.
And that's
what's happening.
He is calling for World War III, really. He's gambling with World War III, and he's got no right to do it.
You have to work out why. Who benefits from a war?
Well, he's a billionaire now, isn't he?
Well, the point is this.
They want the power.
And people would argue that it's a proxy war. So what they're doing, they're throwing lots of money where they're not doing the war themselves, but Ukraine's doing it.
It's like the Cold War, isn't it?
Rightly or wrongly, will not win this war. It was as they turn around, as Trump, one of the truths that he said is that if he didn't finance it, it would have been over really, really quickly. We need to work out, as we've said beforehand, deaths on either side are horrible, and we have to find a way to stop this war. Zelensky misunderstood Trump. He was wrongly briefed, and he got it so wrong. It was white heat in the White House, and it was a mistake.
Right, just before we go to John in West Lothian, the Daily Star, who are Daily Star, Starmy loves nice beavers. That's not what I've heard, but anyway, nice beavers will spread across the UK after a Keir Starmer U-turn opened the door to a big beaver boom. So there's going to be lots of nice beavers around. How do they know beavers? They're apparently great hydrologists. They know how to guide
they're brilliant.
How does a beaver know all about that?
They are
Andrew.
Animals are
How do
amazing.
beavers know all about that?
They know about it because they go to beaver school. And what I love about it, they do their research, and it's brilliant. But then they're incredible, absolutely incredible. And you see them work and things like that. It is incredible. Yeah. All animals have got wonderful skills we don't know about, and we'll do that as a feature one day.
OK, let's go to John in West Lothian. John.
Hello, John.
Good evening.
Morning.
Good morning. I'd just like to say I think that Trump is absolutely spot on here, because I think that the bigger picture is that he doesn't want the Russians to get the upper hand in Ukraine, because I think the bigger problem will be in the Far East. I think that he knows that he can't take on two sides, Russia and China. Yes. And I think China, with not just their military might, but their economic might, is probably a bigger threat to the world than Russia is, because...
Well, of course it is. And also, as Trump says, I don't think he's lying or trying to pull the wool over our eyes. He genuinely thinks that this is ridiculous. You know, it's a meat grinder. Thousands of people are dying every day. It's got to stop, and they've got to come to some sort of compromise. A lot of the areas where Russia have taken over are Russian speakers who want to be Russian.
Exactly, and I think that's part of the problem. And I think that they need to come to a compromise, because... Because
you can't win this war. You can't beat Putin. Yeah. He's a nuclear power. You're never going to beat him. They've got to come... It's not like the Nazis where you could beat them.
Yeah, it's interesting. What do you mentioned compromise, and well done you for saying that, because all of these negotiations are compromise. What would your compromise be? What recommendations? Because I know Zelensky and Trump watch this programme all the time. What would you tell them?
What I would say is, sorry guys, Russia has got a certain amount of the territory of Ukraine, and then the people in that area would vote for it to go with Russia anyway. So stop it. You know, give up that. You can't win. I think the biggest mistake that the West made was when they didn't respond when Russia took over Crimea.
Yeah, exactly. In 20, they look weak. And also Biden was doing deals, wasn't he?
And you look at the reason this war, and people talk about these minerals, and they say we were digging deeper into what this actually meant. The World Bank has said it's going to cost $550 billion to rebuild Ukraine, but nobody's got it. There's not enough to cover the minerals. How would you solve that?
Well, I think the other big problem is that if you look at the likes of China, they're already in Africa, where some of these other minerals are already, being...
They've cornered the market in Africa and everywhere. They're basically colonising everywhere in all but name.
Yeah, and we've all turned a blind eye to it in the West.
Yeah.
They are the threat.
They're sucking up to them. I mean, look what Tony Blair did, look what Osborne and Cameron... I remember when they came over, the Chinese leader used police to shield them outside the embassy so they wouldn't see the protesters.
Yeah, well...
And Osborne, they're all in on it, because China are the future economic powerhouse. But now they're realising, America still has a lot of strength. America is still by far economically the most powerful.
And do you think, can I ask you this then, do you think, Trump talks about tariffs and the big tariffs he's going to impose on everybody, 25% across the board. Do you think that will work with China?
No.
Why not?
Succinct.
No, because I think that China have got and they've got their fingers in every pie around the world, and they will manipulate the rest of the economies around the world, and they will take over. And
they haven't really got a finger in the oil pie, have they? That's what they haven't got.
Yeah, but you know, they're going to be in bed with Iran and various other places anyway. So, you know, they're not stupid. They're playing the long-term game. And we, as the West, and Europe in particular, who I think are a shower of unbelievable numpties, are just willing to give in to anything.
I don't think China will be very happy that Trump's causing peace to break out with Putin. I think they wanted it to continue. What do you think, Andrew?
I think they want to see what's concluded, because if Putin ends up with what he wants and a bit more extra territory, they may turn around and say, well, now's our chance. But I think that the Chinese are very shrewd negotiators. I think that's the point. Sorry,
they're playing for the long game because he's a lifetime leader, isn't he?
Absolutely. Well, that's the thing. And you look at the power. Now, I always say we need... The problem with the news at the moment is we shine a spotlight on one particular area, but in
the media, that's the media again.
Things don't stop everywhere else in the world, and you're right to have a global overview. And what I like about having people with different views, as we always encourage here on talkTV, is we get greater understanding as a result. So it's brilliant to have the calls. And I tell you what, our audience have got better suggestions than our politicians, so it's great to have your call.
Thanks, John. I tell you what as well, America are powerful again. You know, they look weak with Obama. They thought he was going to be great, but he was a damp squib. Look at the red line in Syria. He said, if you cross that, use chemical weapons, that'll be it. And then they did it, and then nothing happened. Look weak. Biden then just pulled all his troops out, and the Taliban now subjugating people again, looking very weak. China looking at that. Putin is looking at that. They invade Ukraine. They would have never done it with Trump at the helm. No. And now America are strong again, and that will bring stability, won't it?
Absolutely. And was a seismic shift in how America handles its allies. And that people will look back at this. I can guarantee that clip will be played a zillion times in the same way as
probably
Trump...
tonight. I'm going to watch it when I get home a few times.
But in the same way as the assassination attempt and so on and so forth. Trump
was a miracle, wasn't it?
It was incredible. Trump has populated that sort of stuff. He's a master media manipulator. He knows what he's doing on that sort of basis.
It's not even a manipulation. It's his instinct. I mean, when he had his ear shot off, he didn't plan that, and he went fight, and people love that.
They absolutely
the real him was coming out, not one of these, forgive me, bullshitters that we have in politics.
And just to be clear, he certainly didn't plan that assassination attempt. Somebody died, so that's completely rubbish. The enormous bandage that he had on his ear for a little while afterwards, people might question if it needs to be quite that big.
You get your ear shot off, you need a decent bandage.
Is that right? But maybe not that big. The reality is he's a master manipulator. He's changing the way that people approach politics, changing the way about diplomacy, and the world has changed as a result of what happened today.
Yeah, but also we just see he's being real, isn't he? Not like others. The Daily Telegraph, make a deal or we're out. Shouting match at White House. Trump tells Zelensky, come back when you're ready for peace. and he got turfed out on his ear, apparently, and told to calm down. Gen Z lawyers need extra hand-holding.
Yes, we do.
You do, don't you? Yeah.
Gen Z. We love a good hand-hold, thank you.
Gen Z lawyers... I know I can't read.
Jay-Z lawyers.
Jay-Z, there's a lot of them. Police probe after BBC cash for Hamas claim. That's the story about the counter-terrorist squad are actually investigating the BBC, because if they paid Hamas, they're a prescribed terror organisation, which is a very serious criminal offence. But will the police be unpartisan? I mean, everything's been... I think there is a change in the air, especially since Trump came in.
No, absolutely. And the BBC, to their credit, which we should get credit where credit's due, I praise the right things, because then you can criticise the bad even more.
But they've got caught so badly, haven't they?
The reality on this one, they've admitted that
they couldn't do anything else, though,
the editorial approach, which is the point we're trying to make to the gentleman who was on late earlier.
Donica,
yeah. So Donica, and it's very good they came on, because he gave a chance to basically hear his side, but also for him to admit there were fatal flaws, and this was the whole point. So there were flaws, the BBC admitted that, they need to be addressed, and we always say make sure it never happens again, and then next week something else has happened.
Yeah, of course, and they say, it was no mistake. We know what's going on at the BBC. England booze blew my mind, says Genge. England... I can't read that. Bargain hunt star cleared of beating wife, so that's good. Hard man, soft man, the real Stephen Graham. Anyway, talking about... why did they release his name? If he's innocent, why? Well, I suppose maybe maybe it had already come out, but I don't know. They doxed the guy that burnt the Koran. I mean, how the police put out his name and address when a guy had been assassinated in Sweden? Why are we naming people and not only ruining their careers but putting their lives in very serious danger?
And my point is exactly that. I'm absolutely against trial by media. Everybody is innocent till proven guilty. That's the rule in this country, and it's one of our founding principles. I think it's absolutely wrong to name people, especially, as you say, if they've been found innocent.
We saw collusion with the police and the BBC when there was that helicopter over Cliff Richard's house. Do you remember that? And he obviously was found innocent of all of it, but the police were informed, police informed the BBC, and they ended up having to pay a few million to Cliff Richard.
What we always have to do is to ask those questions. Why are things happening? Why is this story coming out now? Who's telling the story? What benefits might they have as a result of it? And we need to dig down and make sure action is taken.
Thanks. Graham in West London. Graham.
Hello, Graham.
Oh, my fingers lover, my sexy Kylie Minogue. Oh, my fingers lover, my sexy red hot pants.
This is our regular caller, Graham. He calls in every day.
He's very good.
He's a bit like the British Bob Dylan, isn't he? I mean, let's have a bit more of him.
Fingers lover, my sexy delinquent lover.
So you're listening to the James
sexy delinquent mother.
Yeah, great lyrics.
It's an Oedipus complex.
Well, he does. That's why he's strumming on his bed at night with his...
Is that right?
Lover. Hallelujah. Amen.
Thank you, Graham. And anyway, we'll be back, not with Graham, but with Charlie in Dundee and more of the paper. 03444991000. There was the number. We're back in 2 minutes.
Hurrah.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yeah, it's Talk. James Wales gone home. 03444991000. He'll be back next Friday. It's me and Andrew Eborn. We're just going to go through your calls. And we've sort of gone through... They're all about that story, obviously. So we're going to go through some funny story like this one. R.I.P. early nights. Extra long kip dementia link. You should stop going to bed early to stay alive, boss reckon. Getting some shut-eye before 10 p.m. could do more harm than good, despite previous studies. Hailing the benefits of a long kip. I've heard about this. If you sleep, there's fluids in the brain that wash your brain out when you're asleep. and if you don't wash it out enough, they've linked that to dementia and stuff.
But
it's about going to bed early. I mean, I don't ever go
early to bed, early to rise makes a man wealthy, healthy, and wise.
Is that one of your new bingo things?
It could be. No, but it's been around forever.
We need some new ones.
I'll tell you what happened is Maggie Thatcher famously only used to sleep like 4 hours a month or whatever.
Ronald Reagan, he didn't sleep much. He got dementia.
I catnap. So what happens?
That's what apparently Thatcher did, though. She had microsleep.
So that's what you do, and I can tell you it's very good for you.
Well, it didn't help her out. She got dementia. And Reagan got dementia, but you seem all right.
Well, I do seem all right.
What about Biden as well? Maybe he didn't sleep much.
Well, I think you do need your sleep, but it depends on how people react on that sort of basis.
Theresa only gets it 4 hours a night.
Does she? Well, she's very good.
We're not talking about sleep.
Thank you. Kazakhstan, you can't do gags like that anymore.
No,
Look
but
at you bring us back to the 70s.
What about Gene Hackman, right?
Isn't that extraordinary story?
Mummified. I got a Twitter from an ex from an undertaker, and he says it has to be the right conditions, but apparently where they were was the right conditions. They haven't found any gas leaks. One of the dogs has died, and there were 2 dogs still alive. Have they questioned those 2 dogs?
You think it's like a shaggy dog, the Scooby-Doo routine?
The door was open, the kennel door was open, and they looked guilty.
It does sound extraordinary, because the reason they were mummified, they reckon they've been dead for about the terrible thing. Reckon they've been dead for about 2 weeks.
I mean, it is terrible. I mean, he was 94. I mean, my theory is maybe she found him dead, and they found pills open, and she thought, I can't, live anymore.
And she was 63, if I remember rightly.
But they been together a long time.
Yeah,
so,
I know, absolutely. But firstly, a tragic loss. I think the loss of that.
Definitely, and what an amazing actor! What a range! He did Mississippi Burning. He did that. What was that funny film? He did Superman.
Well, he totally was
Royal
Superman.
Tenenbaums. What a great catalogue.
A great talent. But even if he wasn't a great talent, all losses are tragic. What's interesting...
especially an Oscar winner.
What's interesting, the first thing they say, we always rush to judge things in the media. The first thing they said was, oh, no, it's fine, it's not suspicious. Now they're turning around. The phrase they're using is suspicious enough that they want to do a further investigation. So it's going to unpack over the next few days. I don't know, as I say, 2 weeks why it took so long. Secondly, why 3 of them died. 1 dog died, but 2 survived. So
and they found pills open.
But you don't, again, you don't know. People need to look at that sort of side. Many, many questions, as always. Hopefully we'll get some sort of revelation.
Would you remember they found Gorbachev dead? He was 90-odd, but he'd slagged off Putin in the Ukraine war, and a couple of days later, and we know they like to sort of... well, kill people, basically. They did it here, didn't they? Right, let's... Cindy in Michigan. Howdy doody, Cindy.
Hello, Cindy. This is
What's
the same
going
Cindy?
on? You're in America. Has it all gone crazy after that Zelensky in the Oval Office?
Oh, yeah, big time. And you know what? I think that Zelensky went in with a little bit of an attitude, I think, to have kicked it off.
And he wore like the milk tray man. I mean, you won't know that, but he wore a milk tray outfit. I think the military fatigues is all right, but wearing like a black sort of jumpsuit, Trump wouldn't respect that. He's a businessman. He wants a suit and a tie. What do you think about that?
No, I don't think it was what he was wearing. I think that he went in just probably not wanting to sign the deal.
Well, definitely not. He wants to carry on with the war, and Trump wants to stop it. That was basically what happened.
Well, Zelensky is a billionaire now, right?
Yeah. But why are they all warmongers? Why is Starmer a warmonger? Why are the others? If Biden would be around, he'd still be supplying it. They were good friends, weren't they? And Trump actually is a bit bitter, a lot bitter about what happened with Biden and Biden's laptop and all that happened. That actually probably cost him the 2016 election.
Yeah, you need to look at that.
Twitter, as it was then, wasn't owned by Musk, and they covered it up.
What's always fascinating, Cindy, is hearing people from around the world where the news reports it differently. What's the reaction of you and your friends in America when you saw those moments?
Well, basically the same sentiments that I had. Me and my husband were like, something must have kicked it off.
But it was refreshing, wasn't it? Because you never see that. It was all out in the open. Normally that wouldn't go on. That'd go behind closed doors. It was really good transparency, wouldn't it?
Do you think people...
It wouldn't go down like that.
Do you think people in America, Cindy, would be applauding what Trump said?
It all depends on which side of the fence.
But the majority, the people that voted for him, do you think even some on the left will actually be applauding him? No doubt his voters will be, but I actually think some people on the left will be secretly supporting what he's doing here.
Well, you know what? People on the left, there are just never a lot of never Trumpers. A lot.
Trump derangement syndrome, they can't handle it, can they?
Big time.
Are you seeing that down your street? So do you live in sort of a sort of conservative area?
I live in a conservative area, but most of my friends, my lifelong friends, are in San Diego, California.
Oh, right.
And so they're never Trumpers. So I got the axe.
You make
from
a
lot
really
of
interesting
people.
point, though, Cindy. There's a very famous person who was a never-Trumper who called Trump the American Hitler at the 2016 election. Do you remember who that was?
Gonna have to hurry you.
It was J.D. Vance.
Oh, that's right.
That's what J.D. Vance said. He said he was a never-Trumper.
You know what?
Yeah.
I was a never Trumper too.
Really?
The road to Damascus.
Why is it? Because a lot of women don't like him because of the comments he's made. I'm sure he never did those things, or I hope not. What was that? What it was?
I wasn't turned on to talk TV during, in 2016, and I was a Democrat. I was brainwashed. I watched a lot of CNN, MSNBC.
Chicken noodle news. So it was talk TV. So was it us?
News,
Was it us
totally.
that converted you?
I was watching a lot of Piers Morgan, and then on my what populated on YouTube was Talk TV, and I started watching you guys.
Nice.
And actually, it was Talk TV.
Good.
Oh, well, that's good. So we changed you. We changed you to Trump.
Kelly J. Keane.
Oh, very good. So are you converted? What basically, because we all just try to unpack the argument so people can make informed decisions, and that's why we try and do it in a fair way. What advice would you give to Zelensky to get back in Trump's good books, if he ever was in there?
And called him a bitch after in Ukraine.
Oh, God. And I want to say I missed most of your show, and I want to apologize for that because I was out.
You can watch it on YouTube, of course. But the other thing Trump does, he does forgive people after a bit. I mean, certain people, I think he still bears grudges, but he does forget things because he's been in that business. He's dealt with the mafia for building skyscrapers in Manhattan, so it's water off a duck's back to him.
A Donald Duck.
It is not going to be difficult for Zelensky to get back into the good graces of Trump. I mean, Trump's not going to forget this.
Humble pie.
Humble pie is exactly it. Humble pie, baby. Number one, yes, because you know what? The most important thing here is stopping this war.
Exactly, they're meat grinder. They're just throwing their people at it, and it's disgrace. Thanks, Cindy. And this is a story. High Five boy bands come back. Boy Band 5 are reuniting. They're reuniting, Andrew.
We're so pleased.
For a tour with their original lineup for the first time in 25. They'll be about 60 years old. They'll be on with a Zimmer frame. Doing a synchronised Zimmer frame thing and mobility scooter. Were you a big fan of Five?
I never missed an episode.
No, I love Five. A great game show.
I think in a recession they're now called 4, aren't they? Though?
Yeah,
Is
that's
that
right. Yeah, or 7 because they're putting a bit of weight. Clint Eastwood's tribute to Pal. Clint
what does
Eastwood,
he say?
Because he's about 95, 96. He's
an amazing man.
Clint Eastwood. Have you ever met him?
Yeah, I couldn't
Because he
possibly
used
comment.
to be in Hollywood.
I
Yeah,
couldn't possibly comment.
He's linked to Hollywood. I can't tell you how, but it's amazing. By the way, they're going to be up. I heard they're going to be freeing Charles Bronson, the prisoner.
Well, quite right too. Good.
Yeah, he used to send me pictures that he did. I've got a portrait of me by him, actually.
Oh, have you?
I've got a few paintings by
that
Charles.
right?
So, hi, Charles Salvador. I think he changed his name to Salvador. He's a good artist, actually. He's pretty good. Well, you got a lot of time when you're locked in a cell.
There's a
within
lot
a
of
cell.
talent that people have. Hidden talents of various people.
He's got a lot of hidden talents.
What does Clint say about Gene?
Clint Eastwood last night paid a heartfelt tribute to his friend and Unforgiven co-star
that's
Gene
the one.
Hackman. Eastwood, who was also produced and directed the Western, which both men won Oscars, said, "There was no finer actor than Gene. I think that's true. Intense and instinctive. Never a false note. He was a dear friend whom I will miss very much." Meanwhile, Prince William posted on X, "Hackman was a true genius of film and Godfather director Francis Ford Coppola, whose 74 movie classic The Conversation starred Hackman, described him as a great artist. He added, Gene Hackman, a great actor, inspiring and magnificent in his work and complexity." That's brilliant. Let's go to Josh in Oxford. Hi, Josh.
Hi, Josh.
Hi. Good evening, gentlemen.
All right. What do you want to talk about, Josh?
So I'm going to start with obviously the King's letter that was.
Yes. Trump loved that.
He did love that. I think personally it's a great move on our behalf.
Of course it was.
It's soft power, isn't it, in action? Because he hates Keir Starmer, but he brought that letter out and he was like purring like a puddy cat, wasn't he, Trump, when he saw that?
Well, this is it, but it's also, I think, on our behalf. It's Charles basically saying if Starmer screws this up, then surely we have a
great point.
It's got another avenue to get out of it. And then Starmer going on about we're going to supply Ukraine. I mean, and also, what about Starmer in the Oval Office when J.D. Vance, after his speech challenging the freedom of speech decline in Europe, he's then Starmer's interrupted, goes, I'm very proud that Britain is still freedom of speech, while he's, Apple are pulling out their end-to-end encryption, and that's American companies. J.D. Vance made the point, this will affect American consumers and their companies. I heard Trump saying they're going to put sanctions on us if we start messing with their, the big tech guys.
Well, the sanctions are they won't come and invest here if our rules and regulations.
Well, that's already happening, and people are leaving in droves.
But the point you make about the Charles letter was so powerful because he's the first president ever to be invited by 2 monarchs.
That's right. I think the first president that's had 2.
Yeah.
But that just shows people who go, what's the point in the monarchy? That's just one of them. That's a really important thing that happened, especially because he can't stand Starmer.
But it is our backup plan. It's a case of if this does not go well, we have our monarchy that is
well, it's sort of a valve, isn't it, to release pressure from rogue governments. You don't get rogue governments when you've got a monarchy, apart from the time they chopped Charles II's head off. But they were all right to Cromwell. It was his son that wasn't very good. Thanks, Josh. We got a little break here. Yeah, we'll take a break and we'll be back in 2 minutes.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It's Talk with Ash Andrew Eborn. James Whale has gone home, but he'll be back next Friday. 0344499 1000. Give us a ring, and let's go to Emma in Leicester.
Hi, Emma.
Hello, can you hear me, guys?
Yeah. We can hear you so clearly. How's Leicester?
Oh, Leicester is, well, to put it mildly, a third world shithole.
Tell us about that. Yeah, tell us what's going on in Leicester.
So I've worked as a social worker in Leicester, as a child protection social worker for about 10 years. I come from a council estate in Leicester. It's just gone totally downhill.
What do you mean, in what way? Because you were involved in child services, you're talking about what's happening to children in Leicester?
Yeah, I mean, that's been ongoing for a number of years now. The mayor of Leicester, Peter, I think his name's Solsper, he's putting all these silly cycle lanes when the roads are potholes everywhere.
But that's probably the least of your problems in Leicester, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
we all used to live together in Leicester, a lot of different people.
Multiculturalism did work in Leicester because it was gradual
really
and people became British, didn't they? But they've brought in too many people at once.
It was a great community, wasn't it?
It really was, and then you've got the Afro-Caribbean people here in large numbers.
And the Muslim community, and they all got on until when there was a big influx. There was actually sectarian riots, weren't there, between the Hindu and Islam during the cricket match.
Yeah. What do you think the solution should be? What do you think the solution should be?
Yeah, what's the solution?
The truth of it is it doesn't work. Multiculturalism does not work because all these people come here and they've all got different values about the world and how they see it. And in Leicester there's a road and it's like a ghetto now. There's that many different people and they don't get on with each other.
There's a lot of people on drugs and drunk in the streets as well. There's a policing problem, isn't there?
But as we said beforehand, it used to be a thriving community where everyone
was very rich with the Industrial Revolution and the industry there.
What was the tipping point, do you think?
I think it's like you say, there's people coming in from mainly, I would say, Pakistan and some Sikhs who have come in who are quite militant, but it's people who are not born here, because if you're born here, people from Leicester, you see all different people and they all sound like people.
But even if you're born, exactly, it doesn't matter what denomination or ethnic group you were born in Leicester. But you see, we've had immigrants. We used to get 50,000 a year. Now we get 1 million a year. Of course, they want to just have it their way and they don't blend into the British way.
Well, that was the point. Sorry, that was the point about community, though, wasn't it? Because you used to have lots of people from different cultures and so on and so forth, and they used to get on really well together.
And they were proud of their cities.
They were absolutely proud, and it's taking pride in that community that made it work. So I'm interested in what the tipping point was. There were people who came in who wanted to change it. What was the change?
I think the Salisbury, he's quite woke and he's been in a number of years now. Like, he spent about £3 million on this Chariot Square, which is supposed to be to bring people into Leicester. It's not safe in Leicester. Like, I'm quite hard. I've worked child protection, knocking on people's doors and things like that. But I went into Leicester about a year ago and I felt unsafe. There's a lot of e-bikes, young men on e-bikes whizzing around. The town's actually, it's just gone derelict.
And is it to do with sectarian voting as well? People voting on, they're told to in their communities vote for this person. You're getting the wrong people in power there.
Yeah, and we've obviously got this MP for Gaza now, which is absolutely ridiculous.
That's exactly the point, isn't it? I mean, they stand for Gaza when they're meant to be representing Leicester. Yeah. Thanks, Emma. Sorry.
Okay, thanks.
No, go on, Emma. What did you want to say there?
I was just going to say about the campaign manager who got arrested. They kind of surrounded the police station and said, "We're not obeying your laws," basically. And
I saw that. And they was telling them to come out. That was it. I think that was there, was it? Anyway, look, let's go to.
Thanks for your call. Take care.
Yeah, thanks, Emma. Let's go to Sarah in Hartlepool.
Hi, Sarah.
The monkey hangers.
We love Hartlepool.
No, I'm not actually. I'm listening from Chigwell, but I live in...
Chigwell.
What happened? What went wrong? Why did you end up in Hartlepool?
No, because I bought property here.
Because you can buy about 3 there for the price of a tiny box in Chigwell. That's where Alan Sugar lives, isn't it?
I'm loving it with Ash.
You are?
And I love Alan Sugar.
You love Alan Sugar, but you moved away from Chigwell.
He speaks very highly of you as well. He speaks very highly of you.
Did you ever bump into him in Chigwell?
He's standing, stood at my table, and he looked at...
Can't really. We're going to try and get you back. Let's go. We're a bit muffled there. Let's go to James in Portsmouth.
Hi, James. We love Pompey.
Hello, guys. How you doing?
Good to see you.
What do you want to talk about?
So we talk sense now.
All right.
I hope so.
We haven't been, but...
Britain is one of the greatest and most powerful and most educated countries on earth.
You're right, apart from one thing. It's not one of it is the greatest country in the world.
But it's not that power, maybe soft power. We haven't got any military power anymore.
No, we are. Because, do you know the reason? Look at the rest of the world. America, Russia, China, India. Who do they get their ideas from?
Well, we invented the modern world with the Industrial Revolution, the rule of law, you know, the train system, the road system, all the sports are pretty much British. So it all stems from us.
Yeah.
I mean, with these reparation rules, I think we should get reparations because we bankrupted ourselves trying to end the slave trade, lost loads of lives, and people don't understand that, how much GDP we lost. It was a lot worse than anything else that's happened. So we should be getting reparations, and people don't respect what Britain did for the world. It's all slagging off, which is what the Marxists do. They try and destroy the history of a country in order to, like Churchill, they say he was a racist, they say he was this. The thing is with Churchill, he thought that, you know, it was up to the upper classes. Not only, you know, they were above the British working and middle class, it was up to them to look after them, and he thought, and that went out to the rest of the world. But he did say people are all as clever as each other.
And he was, and what you probably noticed this, because I can tell people in Pompey are smart. There's one great thing which nobody's spoken about from that conference with Zelensky and Trump and JD Vance, is right in the middle there was the bust of Churchill back in the Oval Office.
We just talked about the same thing.
And it's amazing here, they just took down Lord Admiral Nelson's photo, and Yvette Cooper put her own picture up. I thought it was Anne Diamond, which I would have had more respect for.
I love Anne, I worked with Anne very well for years.
But yeah, why would you put it of a current crap politician, of a so how vain, and then Starmer takes down Margaret Thatcher's picture? Actually disgraceful. Anyway, James, up the Pompey, we're going to take a break, we'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Keep going, Pompey.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Right, yeah, 0344. Actually, don't call. We've got a full board. But what we're going to do now, we've had some of the Panasonic answer machines flashing. We've got some voicemails, and you can do that on WhatsApp. Voice messages 034449911000. The first one is Rob in Dublin.
Hello, Ash. Rob in Dublin here. I know you're going to disagree with me, but like Donald Trump today in the White House, a total clown. I mean, that was actually car crash television to watch. For to say to Zelensky, like, you wouldn't have won this or whatever without us. Yeah, that's all true. But don't forget, like, if it wasn't for Zelensky and his brave people fighting off them Russians, they'd probably halfway through Eastern Europe now. So what would Trump be doing? You know what I mean? Great to see you again.
Thanks, man. Well, I don't think they would be because they're NATO countries and Putin wouldn't want to risk that. Anyway, let's go to Chloe. Chloe's left a message as well.
Hello, Chloe.
Hi, James and Ash. Good to see you, James. On Zelensky, I think people need to watch the whole meeting before they jump in and criticise on the brief clips that are shown on the media. And the second thing is that Starmer will naturally jump into bed with the EU when, in my opinion, our natural bedfellows are the USA, in fact. Dear oh dear, what a tangled web. Chloe in Gosport.
Thank you, Chloe. Up the road from Portsmouth. We've got a lot of people down
I mean,
south.
I found it really refreshing to see politicians that you wouldn't normally see. I love the transparency of it. And, you know, I think it has to come to an end. You can't just keep, you know, the meat grinder going, people dying. It's horrendous when you see the pictures out there. Right, let's go to the final one for now. Let's go to Sean and we take your calls. Let's go to Sean's message.
Hi, James. Hi, Ash. I agree with Trump. If we want this war to stop, we need a ceasefire. If the Ukraine Prime Minister doesn't go by this, we could be in serious trouble, and I think Keir Starmer needs to watch what he does. If he wants to work with Ukraine and that, we could be in serious trouble. I think the world need to look at Trump and get this war stopped ASAP. Great show, guys.
Yeah, and Germany have already said to Starmer, we don't want to get involved. I mean, Germany buy half the gas, well, they buy all the gas off Russia, so they, they're funding the war. They don't want this to carry on.
There's always a geopolitical reason for everything, which is what you always ask why people are doing things, why they're saying things in the public. It's all a negotiation. I say Trump, it's a beautifully planned drama, and that's what happened.
But it's crazy, isn't it? During the Nazi time, we weren't selling stuff and buying stuff. In fact, Coca-Cola, they couldn't, because of the Mbungo, they couldn't get the ingredients to Coca-Cola into Germany, and that is how Fanta was invented. Yeah, the head of Coca-Cola in Germany got some other ingredient, invented Fanta, so it wasn't all bad, was it? Fanta came when it was all bad. It was a bloody horrendous Holocaust. Anyway, hallelujah, enough of that. Let's talk to Ken in London. Hallelujah.
Ken, how are you?
Good morning, Andrew and Ash. Good morning.
Lovely to see you.
Trumpism is taking over the West. Trumpism is taking hold in the West.
And it's great, isn't it? It feels great. The world's coming to a bit of peace, and less people dying and going to hell.
Well, listen, Ash, the war drums are beating throughout the world.
Yeah, but he's calming them down now, isn't he? He's calming it down.
Many politicians, leaders are talking about the possibility of a coming third world war.
And that's what Trump is the opposite. Trump's going against that grain, so that's a great thing, isn't it?
Ken, can I follow up? Ken, can I ask you a question? I asked last time about the power of prayer, and it was really important. You gave the example of how you had a terrible medical condition, and basically there was blood and so on and so forth, and you got cured through prayer.
And Jesus talked to him.
Absolutely. Help me out with this one, because I want to believe and I want to work on this sort of basis, but the power of prayer, the Pope is not in a good way at the moment. Why isn't prayer working in that case?
Good question.
Well, the Pope's time is running out. The Pope's going to die soon. And I'll tell you something else. The one who replaces this Pope will be a very, very dangerous person. You find this out in the future. But I would like to talk about this, Andrew, if you don't mind. Putin and North Korea and others, they're openly talking about using nuclear weapons in war. They're talking about it.
Yeah, it's all talk, though, isn't it? Because it's mutual assured destruction, Ken. If they do that, they're finished. It's all over. It's good night, Vienna.
Andre, Ash,
he's here next Thursday. I'll be with
It'll be the AAA team, the Andre Ash and Andrew.
Yeah, man.
Listen, serious instability is taking over the whole world.
Yes. But don't you think Trump is now reversing that?
No, Trump is not going to save this world. He's not going to save the world.
Who's going to save the world?
Yeah.
I'd just like to speak about two people on earth right now, the atheist and the born-again believer. An atheist today lives with utter no hope. This world is on the highway to hell. We're sinking into a putrid lake of filth, violence, war, and murder.
And that's just the good bit.
Well, that's true. Person on earth today. The happiest people on earth today, listen to me, please, are those who love Jesus, who are born again. We live with hope.
But that may be because you're under the illusion. I mean, you're right. One of them's got to be right. But if you're under the illusion that you're going to go to heaven, of course you're going to be all right about the end of the world.
It's not an illusion, it's a reality. Listen, God healed me of a heart attack.
And the doctors did as well, didn't they? And the hospitals.
So can you raise that again? And I really need your help on this one. So please just answer this. If he healed you, why is he not healing the Pope?
Well, that's only God can answer that question. And
well, yeah, the Pope might not have been a good man, was he? Apparently he was a nightclub bouncer in Argentina.
No, listen, the Pope is totally anti-Christ. He's not a genuine Christian. He's not,
hold on a minute, hold on. The Pope's anti-Christ. He's God's representative on earth, according to the Catholic
I never said he
religion.
is the Antichrist. I said he has the Antichrist spirit. The Antichrist is
That's like what you say about me. I'm not Antichrist, but I have the
what would you say, Ken, to all the people who find that so offensive that you would say that about the Pope, who's in a bad way at the moment?
That's a good point, Andrew. That's a good point. I say that in love and concern for the Catholic people. I was an altar boy. I was a Catholic. Good people, but they're deceived by the Vatican and the Popery. You've got to get back to the Bible. I'm a bricklayer, a builder. When I go to build a house, I've got to follow the blueprint. If I depart from the blueprint, I get fired.
Sure.
If you want to get to heaven, you have to depart from all religious traditions, including Judaism, and get to the Bible and back to Jesus.
So no, and you always very eloquently, and I always enjoy hearing your point of view. I do want to address this question, though, is the power of prayer, which you said beforehand. How does God decide who he blesses with his healing, and you talked about that for yourself, and who doesn't get blessed? Because it seems to me there's lots of great people who we would pray for, who would think are really good and deserving, if it really is a question of choice, that they should also be healed.
Well, that's another good question, Andrew. But all I can say is God is the only one can answer that. But I'll say this. God sometimes, many times, says no. He doesn't say yes all the time we ask. We're not going to be spoiled. The Bible says it is appointed unto man to die once. We are all going
Why do babies die, like the Bebas kids and kids in Gaza? Why do babies get killed?
Well, that's a work of the devil, isn't it?
Yeah, but what about their spirits?
Those babies who die go straight to heaven. They're covered by the blood of Jesus. Any baby, any child who does not understand the reality of sin is covered by the blood of Jesus. He died for the sin of the world. They're not held responsible. But when a person reaches the age of reason, then God holds us responsible for our
and so following that logic again, and it's a sensible discussion. People who may be born into a different religion, we always make this point, is people tend to follow the religion of their parents. You were talking beforehand about Christ, Jesus Christ, and following that's your only ticket to heaven. At what age, if you're brought up as a Muslim or something else, do you still get to heaven if you're not a Christian?
No, the only way to get to
When's
heaven,
the cut-off
Jesus
point?
said, unless a man is born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God. The Muslims have no excuse. They all heard about Jesus, but they only regard him as a prophet.
But you said the younger children might. So at a certain age, you say all children go to heaven, and so on and so forth, because they hadn't made a choice. So it's the age of reason. Is that what you're saying? When you have a chance to...
It seems to be that when a young child reaches the age of reason to know right from wrong, then God holds them responsible.
After their bar mitzvah.
Under that age, Andrew, I believe that the blood of Christ shed for the sin of the world covers.
And what sort of age would you think that might be? Because it's difficult for some people, if you're brought up in a certain family with a certain religion, it's very rare, if not impossible, that you would pick a different one, isn't it?
The pressure, yeah.
No, it's not impossible. God gave
You wouldn't
us
have gone
the
against your
choice,
parents when you were 13 or 14, would you? You would have carried on, and you only discovered Jesus when you got to about, 40-odd, didn't you?
35 and I was...
So there you go. I mean,
the foreman in the building site told me I had to be born again. And
so you hold others to a higher standard than yourself?
Say that again, Ash?
You hold other kids to a higher standard than yourself, if what you're saying is...
No, the standard of...
Because they might die of a terrible disease at 17 when they did have the brains to decide something, and you're saying they'd go to hell.
But if they refuse to believe in Jesus, the Bible
that's not fair, is it? You were 36 when you discovered them. Why should a 17 or 16-year-old who hasn't had his life and grown into adulthood, why should he be condemned to hell?
A 17-year-old teenager knows right from wrong.
You didn't, did you, Ken? You didn't know till you were 36.
Ash,
you didn't accept Jesus till you were 30.
In the Messiah, Jesus.
You didn't.
In your heart, you know you're wrong, and if you don't repent, you know where you're going.
I know, thanks, Ken.
Don't go to hell, Ash. I love you. And Andre, I'm not against it. I'm a sinner saved by grace.
And
I have nothing to I only boast in Jesus. He's my Saviour. I have nothing to boast about. I'm a sinner saved by grace. But I've been 25 years speaking on this radio to tell you all to repent and believe in Jesus because I love you. I'm not the judge. But Jesus is coming, you folks. Listen to me. Okay. Wake up. Read the Gospel of Mark, Andrew. And
he always gives us homework, Ken. They always give us homework.
I don't mind the homework. And as I say, there are so many questions. And as I say, we work out. We have very strong beliefs ourselves. And I have a lot of people in the church. And my thoughts and prayers are out to all of those who are suffering. I still have questions. And I think talking about it logically, Ken, it's very difficult. And that's one of the things that bothers me at the moment, particularly when you're seeing so much suffering in the world and suffering of what most people would say are really good people.
Thanks, Ken. Anyway, we haven't got much time. We've got a couple more callers. Let's start with Robert in Hertfordshire.
Hello, Robert.
Hertfordshire, Bob.
Well, they hardly ever happen, those hurricanes.
Yeah, it didn't.
Hi, you guys.
Right,
I just want to start off with a quick bit of trivia about Gene Hackman.
Oh, yes, please.
Go on then, yeah. It's like Norman Collier. We missed that. Start again there, Rob.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah.
He was earmarked to play Randall McMurphy.
He was.
Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yep.
Yeah, but he lost out, obviously, to...
Jack Nicholson.
Yep.
Jack Nicholson.
I think Jack Nicholson was perfect because he sort of was a bit mental. I remember in The Shining.
Yeah, but Gene Hackman actually played him off. He won for Over the Cuckoo's Nest off Broadway.
Yeah.
See, Kurt Douglas bought the rights to Ken Kesey's novel in the 50s.
That's
He would
right.
have been good.
Yeah, he played it himself, but the world wasn't ready for One for Over.
Do you know what? I actually met, the Big Chief. I met the Big Chief on an Indian reservation in Nevada near Las Vegas. I actually met him in the 70s, the late 70s in Vegas. And there's a picture of me about 7, 8 years old with the Big Chief and his massive hand around me like that.
Oh, my goodness.
It's amazing.
His name's Will Sampson.
I should have known his name.
You should bring that picture in. We'll have a look.
I will, man. Yeah. I mean, it's quite funny. Anyway, thanks, Robert. That was really interesting. Let's go to a new caller. He's in Edinburgh, and he's Ryan. Hi, Ryan.
Hi, Ryan.
Hi there, how you here? I loved that little bit of Jesusery there a second ago from your caller.
You've got to have a bit, haven't you?
My question is, listen, I know we're all busy gentlemen. I'll keep my question brief.
Don't worry, you're going to be the last caller. We've got a couple of minutes.
Oh, excellent.
Cateries paribus.
As an Irishman, I do feel strongly about national identity and culture. My question is, for you two, in Britain, do you feel as if your sense of identity is being actively understated?
Not our identity, but our country is being taken. It's not like Britain anymore in a lot of places.
And also, the worrying thing is about data. Now what's happening, I always say data is the new currency, and the new rules and regulations...
Another tick on the bingo card.
No, it's true. It's all about data.
I hope you haven't sold any of your digital likeness just yet.
Well, I licensing. I'm an intellectual property lawyer, so I make millions from that. I can make you millions as well.
Excellent. Right. I'll have my Rolodex card. See you after the show.
So how's it going in Edinburgh? What's going on in the Edinburgh? So we talked about Leicester. How is it in Edinburgh?
Absolutely nothing. Pissing rain, cold and shite.
So that's as normal though, isn't it? Has it changed?
Although ACDC...
It's always been old and shite with rain. Beautiful architecture though, but as the actual streets change, as the people change, the demographics?
Full of potholes. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, but potholes, that's the least of our worries down here. It's all you got to worry about, potholes.
Well, I'm more worried about the start of the year.
How is your car,
Yeah, if you got to mess up your wheels, but I always avoid them pretty much.
How does... Edinburgh always used to start, obviously, the year with a wonderful hogmanay and things like that.
Well, that was cancelled,
That's what I'm saying.